Hey everyone, Screenplay Archaeology host KiramidHead here. Just wanted to get some plugs out of the way before the new episode starts. We have now come under the umbrella of Fandom Lib Media, which is also the home of the Table Reads podcast, which is a fellow unproduced script podcast, where they read said scripts out in full over several episodes. So if you like this subject matter and you're curious about a different format for it, definitely check those guys out. Not the least reason which is because you'll be paying tribute to my new podcast overlords, and that can only have a benefit. Also, check out the Shelved Film podcast, which covers similar subject matters. They're not tied in with us, but I want you to go check them out. I want to make that recommendation because I'm just a nice guy like that. And as usual, be sure to check us out on social media on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. We're on almost every means of listening to podcasts. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, a bunch of other places, especially now that I'm on a new platform which can distribute it to a whole ton of different places. So be sure to check out Spotify, Google Podcasts, stuff like that as well. And also a couple of things I want to throw in at the end. We do have a Patreon page. There's not much there. I can't really think of a rewards tier at the moment. And also, I have a Discord server that's been put together for a while, so if you want to show up and try that, as long as you're not an asshole, nothing will happen to you. You won't get kicked out. Just follow the rules. You'll be good. Check that link out down below. And with that, enjoy the episode.
Black cats and goblins and broomsticks and ghosts, covens of witches with all of their hosts. You may think they scare me, you're probably right. Black cats and goblins on Halloween night. Trick or treat. And I am so sorry for that, guys. Alright, hello and welcome to a new episode of the Screenplay Archaeology podcast, and happy Halloween, because if all goes well, this will be going up on the day.
Ooh.
Because I'm your host, KiramidHead.
I'm in between names at the moment, but my name is Christian.
I'm Alex.
And tonight we're going to be going over early versions of Halloween 6, including two really unproduced versions and the first draft of the movie we got that actually is very, very different the further you go into it. So it will be actually worth, doing. Because I was like, when Christian pitched this to me, I'm like, God, do we have to do this other script? And then I was like, as I'm reading it, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, for years, I think we would all hear about like how good the initial draft for Halloween 6 was and how even the producer's cut didn't live up to expectations. So finally, actually, because there's 3 drafts that we have available of it, which is a first draft and then a revised draft and then the shooting script.
And I will say, I will mention some of the differences between the 3 because I did read the other 2. Because we were supposed to record this last week and it got delayed, and so I figured, fuck it, I got nothing better to do. I'll read both of these, and so I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so really, when we're covering the actual Curse of Michael Myers, we will be technically covering all 3 scripts, but just for the sake of it, we're really talking about the first draft just because that is the most interesting.
Yeah, and it is like, I mean, some of the changes in the other drafts are interesting. It'll be really funny to bring up some of the things from that undated revision.
Yeah, it just feels like a TV episode by the end. Yeah, I think we should briefly just say what our thoughts on Halloween 5 were and the series at this point in the franchise.
Yeah, we can talk about 5 specifically, but we don't need to go into the entire franchise because we've got 2 other episodes about that.
I figured that. Let's just say if you guys want to know all the details about Halloween, apparently there's Taking Shape or Shapes Volume 2 coming out, which delves into all of the unproduced scripts.
And I still haven't bought the first book, so...
Basically, Halloween 4 was such a success when it came out that they immediately rushed into Halloween 5, and allegedly without really a completed script when filming.
But no, 5 is weird because it's
It feels like a cast-off Friday the 13th movie with Halloween characters in it and just bizarre go-nowhere plot points like The Man in Black.
Yeah. I will say, because it is one of my lesser favorites in the series, it is one that I can still throw on and watch at any time, just not as much. But over the years, it has grown on me a little, but it's definitely not with all its faults. I would still say it's better than Jason Takes Manhattan. But yeah, and even the Man in Black bit was not an idea they had until filming. Should we state our opinions on Halloween 6 first?
I mean, I'll go real quick. I'll say Halloween 5 is a mess. I mean, it looks good in some places, but it's not a movie I particularly like, and it kind of left like a, what the fuck are they going to do with that ending? And Halloween 6 has that written all over it, like, oh, we had to do something with this. And both cuts of that movie, I could never really, I have a hard time sitting through because the theatrical cut, not only is the plot just complete nonsense by the end, the editing is so awful, it is physically painful to watch that movie for me because it's just like all the time.
Yeah, they also added a bunch of like shake sound effects to it for a jump scare effect. And then I'll rewatch it sometimes and then I'll be amazed, like, wait, there was a jump scare there, you guys, and you didn't use it. And that one instance. And then they even edit down one of the lines of the characters nonsensically. With Barry Sims when he's talking on the radio at the beginning, he goes, now how about the Dahmer guy? And then the theatrical cut, it's, how about the Dahmer guy? And now it sounds like sped up or something.
And also for all the talk of how legendary the producer's cut is, it's not the most interesting thing in the world to watch. Like, it is more coherent, so I'll put that one on, but it's one where I kind of watch it and halfway through I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't really care.
I actually have to disagree. Don't get me wrong, the producer's cut is flawed, and part of that stems to them truncating ideas along the way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then not only that, but also by truncating ideas, I mean like the death scenes also got truncated. And if there's one thing that would have helped the producer's cut, would have been an effective reshoot for the effects. And for whatever reason, they didn't reshoot Barry Sims's death scene. They left all that in, and maybe that's because they couldn't go back to Salt Lake City at that point, because all the reshoots were done in L.A. So maybe they had to like work around the footage that they had. But regardless, the main problem that they had was, and this could be a scripting issue, is should Dr. Loomis have even been in the movie in the first place because of what happened to Donald Pleasance in the end?
Yeah, that is true.
And I say this as somebody who loves Dr. Loomis, especially in Halloween 6. I think Donald Pleasance gives some of his best moments in the series. I mean, and it's so sad that that it was his last one.
It kind of redeemed the character a little bit after Halloween 5, where he was just a psychopath through the entire movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen Halloween 5, but I remember not liking at all what they did to Loomis.
Why are you hiding him, Jamie? Why?
Yeah. But in terms of just the visual aesthetic, I think Halloween 6 has some of the best cinematography in the whole series.
Definitely.
Especially in the producer's cut. It has a nice mix of the blue and orange, and it actually... The blue and orange color palette actually works for the movie. It also has a good score by Alan Howarth. I think that's where he like really came into his own on it. Maybe that's a little unfair to Alan, but because I do like the score of Halloween 4, but he didn't have to do the comedic sound effects again like he did in 5.
Oh God!
Yeah, and.
I watch Halloween 5 again. I do not remember jack shit about that.
It's whenever the bumbling cops are on screen, the movie Alan Howarth just plays the zaniest sound effects on his soundboard.
Oh no!
And like they have a slide whistle.
What?
A kazoo, I think too.
Yes. And it like happens like I think twice in the movie, or is it once? I forget which. But and also not only that, but also considering Halloween 6 is just like a time capsule of like the mid-90s.
Oh yeah, I mean to the point where they auditioned Denise Richards.
It's so hilarious. She gets up and walks out at the end, and they thank her for coming. And they keep their camera rolling, and you see them like puttering around the room, and they go, "She can't act." It's so fucking hilarious. And then I'm trying to remember who else they had auditioning for the movie. I think they had the guy who ended up playing Spider-Man in the Spider-Man animated series was auditioning for Tommy Doyle. But yeah, you can find all that footage online, and it's amazing to think that it all survived. But also, it's the last main franchise slasher movie to come out before Scream.
I was thinking about that because, right, Dimension had gotten the rights to it, and I was wondering why Dimension went so hard for Halloween. And I was like, oh, is it because Scream? And then I was like, oh, wait, yeah, it was a year before Scream. Holy shit.
Yeah, and so it's interesting to see, like, the last slasher movie that's not doing a meta commentary. I mean, it was just a year after New Nightmare had done that.
Yeah, it was.
And also another thing that I think makes Halloween 6 awesome, Paul Rudd.
I don't know whether I like or dislike his performance in that movie. It's so,
I like it. I like it.
It's so odd.
I mean, that is kind of the charm, though, of it. I mean, Tommy was never kind of a straight character in any of these freaking Halloween scripts that have him.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, he's a little more stable than real-life Brian Andrews.
Oh, God. Hands down.
They tried to get him a cameo in Halloween 6, but they couldn't find him because he didn't have an agent.
Yeah.
Sounds like the same shit that happened with Halloween Kills.
Halloween 6, though, like I said, is one of my favorites, and I have nothing but mad respect for what Daniel Ferrands was trying to do with the script, which we will get onto later.
Yeah, and I do too, having read the first draft.
And so I think it's a case of where a slasher movie really needed a longer runtime because it's setting up a lot of ideas that weren't for one reason or another able to be expressed properly. In terms of rushing it, they kept cutting back the effects budget.
Yeah. So is this Dimension doing this?
I believe so.
Yeah, it sounds like a nice thing.
Yeah, we gotta move all our money over to those reshoots for... No, that can't be, because I was about to say the reshoots for Hellraiser 4, but that was also Joe Chabelle.
Yeah, he had to do those reshoots himself for that movie. And, but getting back to the effects, it has some also, I think, some of the best effects work in the entire series when it's done in the movie and sort of allowed to shine. And it also has my favorite Michael mask out of all the sequels.
It's one of the better ones, especially compared to 4 and 5.
Oh, yeah. And I guess all this meandering is coming from the fact of, I think we have PTSD.
We got our houses rigged to explode.
Yeah, and so it's like, how the fuck are we gonna talk about this? And then, do we even want to talk about it? Because we're just kind of like running circles around it at the moment.
I kind of don't, but like we're here anyway, so we're gonna do it.
All right, so to build in some background with this, because Halloween 5 was not a major success when it came out because they rushed it out a year later.
Yeah, it still made its money back because it's a low-budget film. But obviously, compared to Halloween 4, which had been number 1 for 2 weeks in the nation, not as good. And then outside of the States, in a lot of territories, it actually went direct to video.
Oh, Jesus.
But so pretty much has cut because it didn't perform as well. It was Mustafa Akkad decided to take a break. And then a whole bunch of legal issues cropped up where you had different people trying to get control of the rights. You had John Carpenter with New Line's backing was trying to get control of Halloween, but Dimension ended up winning the bidding war. And so that kind of takes us to 94. And the first script that was written for this was
Halloween 666, The Origin by Phil Rosenberg, who I think is Scott Rosenberg's brother.
The writer of Con Air.
Yeah. And it's dated, and it's a script, it's a draft that, before, I'm not going to go into details on the script quite yet, but it's dated April 6th, 1994. And Rosenberg, he's Scott Rosenberg's brother, and literally the only mention of him on IMDb is like an untitled project that they're both working on.
It's his retarded brother.
Yeah, basically. And so the storyline of this one is that you have a reporter named Dana who goes to Haddonfield to do a report about them, because this is a thing which I guess this is the only thing Mustafa Akkad liked about the Etchison version of Halloween 4 is that they bring in the idea of the Halloween ban and how it's being lifted again for the first time since Halloween 5. So she goes to Haddonfield to report on this, and Michael Myers makes a comeback. And as like a side plot that's going on, you have Tommy Doyle trying to figure out the origin of the evil of Michael Myers by using a Lawnmower Man style virtual reality rig.
That was so random.
But yeah, but so that's more or less what the plot is. And I'm kind of leaving certain things out so that we can kind of get into them as the script goes along. And so, okay, from the beginning, it opens with the young Dana Childress, who's driving down a lonely road in a rainstorm, hearing garbled radio reports about an escaped lunatic as her gas runs out. And she pulls into an isolated gas station, and all I'm thinking of is this that segment from Body Bags.
I was thinking that this was the opening to Urban Legend.
Oh, that's exactly what it is. And she's wary of like the crazy looking attendant who he eventually attacks, and it's like, oh no, he's the killer. He smashes the car window open with a window wiper.
I think that's also done in Urban Legend. Am I not mistaken, or am I just having a Mandela effect moment?
I haven't seen that movie in a very long time. Was that also a Dimension film?
No.
Okay.
No, it was the producers of I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh.
Might as well have been, though.
It's actually I kind of like Urban Legend, and hey, it's got Danielle Harris in it for a little bit.
I know I've seen the sequel, the final cut.
Have you seen Bloody Mary?
No, I know I've not seen that one.
Have fun with that.
No, if I want a Bloody Mary scenario, I'll just watch Candyman again. Fuck it.
Yeah.
But okay, so, but then he gets attacked himself by Michael Myers, who was hiding in the backseat all along. Dun, dun, dun.
Who would have fucking thought?
And then Dana wakes up from her nightmare, writes it down in her notebook, and then we cut to a Pop-Tart jump scare as Sean Bean talks to her. Oh, wait, I'm getting my dumb movies mixed up.
Once you get a lick of paint on this place. That's like half his dialogue in that movie, I swear. But moving on. But
it's
no,
gonna be the next script.
No, Michael Myers kind of moves in on to attack her, and then she wakes up from her dream in a cold sweat. And then she visits her therapist, and we learned that she's been having these dreams about Michael Myers for a while, and always wakes up between midnight and 1 a.m. And that they seem to get
the witching hour.
The witching hour, yeah, and they seem to get more vivid each time. Okay, and so we see Dana at her job as a rookie reporter.
I love this bit.
What?
A bit of the dialogue was crossed out on the therapist scene.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So, who wants to play Dr. Wolf? I'll play Dana.
You're Dana, right?
Yes.
So go.
Well, no, you have your obsession with Michael.
I'll
say this. I never wish to be attacked by a vicious serial killer, Dr. Wolf.
Your obsession with Michael Myers is curious. It's always Myers?
Always. I mean, if I'm going to have recurring dreams, why couldn't they involve me? Why couldn't they involve Mel Gibson and a desert island?
Those dreams can be just as traumatic upon waking, Dana. Trust me, I know.
Wait, he's had erotic dreams of Mel Gibson?
I thought it was supposed to be a woman. I thought the doctor was supposed to be a woman.
Oh, she.
She smiles warmly. Dana shrugs.
It's just like, he won't leave me alone.
I wonder if this was Mustafa Akkad, like, penciling out this dialogue. Because
the dream with Mel Gibson. My nipples! They hurt when I twist them!
I'm just imagining it's this line of dialogue that made him want to throw the script across the room.
Yeah, I should say the story goes that Mustafa Akkad read this script, and when he was done, he threw it at the wall. She's at her job at Channel 6, which is a local NBC affiliate. Now, I'm going to say this now because it takes the script forever to mention this fact, but they're in Chicago.
Yes.
Like, they don't mention that until way later when they're in Haddonfield, and it's like, oh, by the way, blah, 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 back in Chicago. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, which is interesting because one of the ideas we've had for like a sequel to Etchison's Halloween 4 script is that part of it at least would take place in Chicago. To put Michael in another environment. I would like to actually see him in an urban environment.
Michael takes Chicago.
Yeah, at least for a little bit. There's something that, there's some like cool imagery you could do with Halloween and Chicago.
You definitely could, yeah.
And so that's way more fascinating than whatever we're about to land our shit into.
Yeah. All right. And so she attends a meeting where the producer, Brinkman, is taking pitches for story ideas. And she, with some support from her coworker, Robert Clifton, who is kind of sort of a potential love interest and never really goes anywhere, but they kind of hint towards that. Dana pitches a story doing a story on Haddonfield's first Halloween celebration since the killings in 1989, spinning it as a story about renewal. And Brinkman likes the idea and has Clifton go along with her to guide her on her first assignment, suggesting they interview Dr. Loomis. And it's like, I was getting mad Anchorman vibes from that conference room scene. Like, are they going to make her go to a puppy fashion show?
Yeah, guess what? That's also got Paul Rudd in it.
Yeah, it does. We gotta get back on this.
I want to.
The weirdest transition ever. We go from the news office to the scene of an ancient Celtic ritual lorded over by a priest in a deer head mask, and it's soon revealed that this is a virtual reality simulation, and the hacker running it is growing frustrated, intercut with a pair of shoes approaching up some stairs. And as the steel door to the hacker's attic apartment opens, he screams and takes off the headset, revealing himself to be a now grown-up Tommy Doyle, presumably played by Jeff Fahey.
I'm not gonna lie, when I read that portion of the script, I thought I got a wrong page. I was like, this can't be right.
And okay, another thing this script takes forever to mention, so I'm just gonna mention it now. He is living in the attic of the Doyle house.
Yeah.
Getting cucked by two teenagers.
Yeah, who are apparently paying the rent.
Yeah, well, that's so weird to me. Isn't he like 25 in the script or something?
He's 29, and he has two underage people living in his house.
He's, by the way, I think they give him two different ages in this, and like later on, they give him what his age was in the first movie, and it does not make any sense at all with the timeline. Like, he cannot be 29 and have been 9.
Yeah, and then in the next draft, he went from being 29, he's like 27 in the other draft, and when he looks at it like an old childhood photo of his, he's 6. And so that would have been 21 years later. So
he's confronted by two teenagers who are named Mickey and Bad News. Bad News never gets a real name in this. He's just Bad News, and presumably his last name is Bears.
That is so hilarious to me. Why is he called Bad News?
I don't know. 90s, I guess?
Sounds about right.
And they want Tommy to stay in his attic apartment during their upcoming Halloween party, as he tends to scare off their guests with his ramblings about rituals and Michael Myers. And there's a story they tell about apparently this one of them thought he was going to get lucky with this girl, but apparently Tommy, being crazy, somehow cock-blocked him.
Yeah, something like that. They call him Trembling Tommy or something.
Yeah, he's Trembling Tommy in this one, and he's called something else in the next draft, but we'll get to that. And like, so he's looking out the window. But okay, so after they leave, we see, and as they leave, he's looking out the window. I think they make like jerk off motions at him as they drive away.
Because of course they do. Because every slasher character has to be a douchebag.
Every 90s slasher character has to be a douchebag.
And in Halloween 5. And so we see that Tommy's little apartment up there is filled with items related to Michael Myers, as well as a picture of his younger self with Laurie Strode. And I'm like, okay, how much would they have to pay Jamie Lee Curtis for that?
Or it's just like a really bad Photoshop of the two.
Oh, yeah. And we then see Tommy, who he's in the middle of a park in Haddonfield naming all of Myers' victims over a megaphone. And
he gets some of them wrong.
What?
He gets some of them wrong.
Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah, he gets like first names and last names wrong all over the place. And like he includes Jamie in there.
Threw me off.
Yeah, and like Brackett is spelled with one T. Linda has a completely last name. Then when Allison Platt, I'm trying to remember in Halloween 2, isn't the first girl that's killed Allison, named Allison, the other one who's in her house?
I don't remember, if I'm being honest.
Neither do I.
But he gets, but it's weird that Jamie gets brought up in there, and I have to point this out because that is one of only 3 references you get to Jamie Lloyd in this entire script. So that whole cliffhanger from Halloween 5 is just kind of not addressed.
Yep, fuck you if you liked her character.
Which is kind of a running theme with Halloween 6 when you think about it.
Yeah.
They should have just called it Halloween 6. Fuck Jamie Lloyd.
Well, that's literally what happens in the producer's cut, but
Yeah.
Tommy, he gets rousted by Sheriff Littman. So there's yet another new sheriff in town. Back at Dana's office, she tries and fails to get a hold of Loomis and talks to Brinkman about it, also saying that she couldn't find anything on Myers' parents, with Brinkman telling her that they spent the rest of their lives dodging press. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, in Halloween 2, didn't they die like a year later?
Yes.
So yeah,
I think so.
They spent all of a year dodging press.
They died in the Princess Diana car crash style. Help us! I am a journalist. I cannot interfere.
And so Brinkman leaves. There's this brief moment. It's kind of a decent-ish suspense moment where Dana gets spooked by the shadow of an antenna. And oh boy, get ready for this next bit. Okay, from there we go to a city, which I have to assume is Chicago, even though they don't say, where
it has to be.
Where 4 frat boys dressed up as the Droogs from A Clockwork Orange leave a pre-Halloween party at a bar, and they come across a bum in an alleyway, and they decide to just start beating him up like what happens in The Clockwork Orange, and they're singing in the Rain, but they get the song wrong a couple times.
Yeah, and who did they think they're beating up? Nick Nolte? That's right, boys. I wasn't here camping out for St. Paddy's Day. I'm going to fill the river with my gamma rays.
Okay, so the bum gets up and brutally kills 3 of the 4, shoving a rat down one's throat, and then the 4th one just pisses his pants and runs away. And his heavy breathing reveals him to be Michael Myers.
Is he in a mask or not in a mask?
I'm going to have to... No, he gets a mask later.
Okay.
So this is kind of the precursor to Zombies Halloween 2 in a sense.
Yeah, like I was surprised by that. Like I was reading it and I was like, why is there a random A Clockwork Orange remake? And then I was like, oh, he's Michael, isn't he? Oh, that was Michael.
What drugs was Phil Rosenberg on when he came up with this scene? It's like you're reading it, it's just like, what the hell just happened?
I think he was watching A Clockwork Orange while he was tripping on acid, and then he was just like, oh shit, that'd be a good idea, and then just wrote it down.
What year did Rob Zombie's music video where he is dressed up where he has him and others dressed up as the Droogs and they're like on Clockwork Orange style sets? What year did that video come out?
I don't know. Was that a solo song or was it White Zombie?
It had to be a solo song. It's Not Gonna Stop.
I don't know. That would have to be late 90s then.
Maybe Zombie read the script and was just like, this is perfect for Halloween too.
Yep, Never Gonna Stop, the Red, I don't know when it came out.
Okay, so we go to Dana again, who delivers groceries to her Grammy, an 84-year-old woman with a large mole on her nose, and that's important, so remember that.
Nice to mole you.
Nice to meet you, mole. Shut up!
That's Mike Myers.
Oh, that's gonna be in the next one.
Oh, fucking
Are you fucking kidding me?
No, I'm not. I'll save that. But okay, so she's watching Wheel of Fortune and perving on Pat Sajak because, of course.
Yeah. Let me see here. I'll read it out. Mr. Pat Sajak, I tell you, he really does it for me.
Yeah,
I'd like to buy him a Val.
And that leads into a conversation about Dana lacking a love life. And Dana then notices a bronze figurine of a masked soldier wielding a spear, which Grammy says was a gift from one of her gentleman callers. I'm just like, oh, so Grammy is a big old slut.
Gilf.
So Dana leaves and gets spooked in the elevator by an old man. She at first thought was Michael Myers. And we go back to him, Michael Myers, and he's chilling in a homeless shelter. So yeah, not only is he homeless living in an alley, he goes to shelters for food.
And not only that,
it's just like, how does no one notice that he's Michael Myers? Like, seriously.
Like, shouldn't he be burned to a crisp?
And not have any eyes?
Like, you think, like, this big, like, hulking, burned to a crisp serial killer walking through a fucking homeless shelter would raise a few red flags, but no one notices anything. I think, like, one of them even, like, nods at him or something, like... Oh.
Yeah, it's implied that he's a regular there, and it's described as being this dystopian Dickensian homeless shelter.
Here's the first line of description. A place right out of Dickens. Yeah, when I think homeless shelters, when I think modern-day homeless shelters, I think of Charles Dickens.
Absolutely. I mean, they were everywhere in 1995. Well, I guess this is 94, but...
This is taking place in 95 in this script.
Okay, then never mind then. My joke still stands.
And so, yeah, but he's there, and he sees Dana's report about Haddonfield on, like, there's promos for the report on TV, and he catches sight of her, and that makes him, sort of, prick up. And he goes to leave. There's like this other guy. He's called like the rag man who keeps giving him shit. And so it literally says he snaps his wrist like an old breadstick.
I know it's not confirmed, but I'm just going to assume he's Eddie Ragman from Trick or Treat.
Yeah, it says Michael snaps his wrist like a breadstick because he gets in his way. And I'm like, who looks at this guy and is just going to be like, yeah, I'm going to fuck with him.
Name. Hold on. The mascot's named Eddie in that, for Iron Maiden. And we also get a line that sounds like, it would have been a perfect, tagline for Halloween Resurrection. Fear has a homecoming.
Yeah.
From, the TV announcer.
Go on, out the back. So Tommy then goes to a hospital looking for Dr. Loomis and asks a nurse at the front desk for his office, and she gets all smug and sarcastic, but points the way after Tommy calls her out on it. It's this weird thing where she acts like she's pranking him, and it turns out, but then Tommy takes the elevator up to where she told him to go, and it turns out that Loomis is now a patient in a poorly maintained mental ward, because all those years pursuing Michael Myers have finally taken their toll. And Tommy says he found Loomis through Ben Meeker, so Sheriff Meeker is in this script a little bit, which is kind of cool. And we learn here that neither Jamie Lloyd nor Michael were found after the police station massacre, so we get reference 2 of 4 for her. And Loomis assures Tommy that Jamie was the last known relative of Michael Myers, and with her gone, he'll never come back. Unless it turns out that that Lori is off in California somewhere with another kid.
Or she's out. Or she's out just like making a weird shelter for herself.
What was I going to say here about this fucking scene? Oh, yeah, it's an entire dump on the Loomis character.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's like they went, nah, we maybe don't want Donald Pleasance back for this one, so yeah, let's just stick him in a mental ward because this is the only scene he's in.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. Loomis, you come with me? No.
Okay.
I'd rather watch my shitty TV. But, okay, so, yeah, he tells Tommy that his research into the Samhain Festival won't bear fruit as he's tried that angle himself. And he says that Tommy will have to do this on his own as he doesn't feel up to it anymore. And he also has one of those bronze warrior figures with him somehow.
Oh, yeah, that has something to do with something.
Yeah, I never quite figured that out. And so, meanwhile, the news team is in their van heading for Haddonfield, and it's Dana, Clifton, driver Andy, sound guy Tony, and cameraman Blake. And okay, so you have a guy named Clifton and a guy named Tony in the same scene together. I just keep thinking it's going to turn into Man in the Moon. And they examined the results of Myers.
Are we sure the script isn't a bizarre experiment by Andy Kaufman from Beyond the Grave?
That would make more sense.
Yeah.
It would honestly make it, like, actually good.
Yeah, I mean, if this was the case, I mean, bravo, Andy Kaufman.
Hello, I am Andy, and this is my Halloween movie. They examined the results of Michael's CAT scan, which came up completely normal. It's like, okay.
What the fuck is the point of telling me this?
To pad the runtime.
Oh, yeah, and this thing is only, like, 102 pages?
Yeah, it's really short for the most part. And, like, all the information, I'm just like, this is so padded out.
They arrive in town, and they interview...
there's an Arsenio Hall reference, and now I just can't think... I can't not think about that bit with Jason on the show.
Well, I mean, with all the weird, like, cult stuff in this, I'm just thinking of that Coming to America scene, like, I worship the devil. But so they arrive in town and interview Hardy Lomax, the owner of a store called Hardy's, who is all in on cashing in on the renewal of Halloween, and he has a mask display, which includes the Halloween 3 mask and the classic Michael Myers mask. So cool little Halloween 3 reference there. And we then go to Sheriff Littman and ex-Sheriff Ben Meeker outside the department store in Haddonfield. And Meeker is concerned about bringing back Halloween. And it's here that we learned this happened because most of the town council members who had lost someone to Michael have since left town. And there's like all these new people, and it specifically called them yuppies. That's a running gag in this thing.
So how far away from the Chicago are they if you're having yuppies move in and gentrify your town?
Yeah, isn't it supposed to be pretty far?
Yeah, like, I thought it was supposed to be like in the outskirts of town or something. Like, they make a point how Haddonfield's far away.
Yeah.
And Littman says not to worry about it, though, and drives off while Meeker walks in the direction of Town Hall. And this conversation is also where we get yet another Jamie Lloyd reference where we find out that she has gone missing and no one knows where she is. Like, this, I think the line is specifically like, oh, she's been doing the milk carton rounds ever since.
That's sad.
Kind of sounds like how the producers felt about Jamie Lloyd. We have no idea what to do.
Oh, that is so evident across all these scripts.
Except for the Ferrands script.
Yeah, he actually cares, but we'll get to that. A group of protesters has gathered at Town Hall, unhappy about the celebrations being started back up again. Dana and the news crew are also there, interviewing people and getting different points of view. And Dana bumps into Tommy, who tells her he's the oldest living survivor of Michael Myers. I'm like, wait a minute. That can't be true.
Yeah.
Because Loomis is still alive, and he is a survivor of Michael Myers.
I'm the oldest looking, I'm the oldest living Michael Myers survivor that we could afford.
Wait. Another thing I'm confused. Are we what year is this taking place in? Because they say 31 years ago tonight. 31. Okay, well, let's assume this is 95. That would have been in 64 when he committed the attack in 63. Unless this is taking place in 94.
I think it might be.
How the fuck did they expect to have this out in theaters for that year?
I'm pretty sure they might have thought, like, oh, we'll just change it in shooting or some shit.
Probably.
That Mustafa Akkad was no stranger to rushing productions. Okay, and then he says he just wants to live through the night, and Clifton approaches Dana, but before they can talk, a disturbance occurs with a Father Carpenter, who is equated with the priest from Halloween 4, whose name was Reverend Sayer. So a bit of a fuck up there, Phil. Ranting on
very unprofessional, Phil, the boom mic operator who's going to be fired.
He's ranting on the town hall steps, and he seems to focus in on Dana, asking about how her dreams have been lately, saying they tend to come true this time of year, but she gets snapped out of it because Clifton comes back and he tells her he got the names of older survivors from Meeker, but he didn't mention Tommy, who has disappeared from the crowd. So everybody in this town is just kind of like, fuck Tommy.
Yeah, it really doesn't. This script really doesn't do a good job of making me like Tommy either.
Yeah, he's very strange in this.
And that's where I think in Halloween 6, Paul Rudd is perfect, and I think even the character of Tommy is just fine in that movie. Compared to these scripts, this script just doesn't have a good view of Tommy, even though he's meant to be our hero.
I mean, is he? Dana's the one who does everything, pretty much.
Yeah, I thought he was kind of more just like a glorified background character.
So what the fuck is he doing in this?
You gotta give him as an excuse to show off all our flashy VR special effects that we have access to.
He's biding his time until he can become Anthony Michael Hall.
Exactly.
Okay, so a little girl runs into Michael on a Haddonfield street, his face remaining in shadow, but he doesn't harm her. And she just
gets seen in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Are you a giant? Can we be friends?
Are you an angel? Wait, wrong movie.
I know it's really funny if you listen to the commentary. Rob Zombie talks about how that kid was the most difficult actor on the entire shoot. Like that kid was just a little shit diva, according to him.
Oh my god, that is amazing.
Okay, and from there, we go to Mickey, Bad News, and a girl named Wendy in the local cemetery. And man, she's come down. She's fallen far from Peter Pan.
Yeah. Everyone knows it's Wendy. Do, do, do. Who's coming down the streets? We're losing our minds slowly and surely throughout this episode, you guys.
Yeah,
sorry.
And they're in the local cemetery, and I'm pretty sure the word cemetery is misspelled because writers could never spell that word, where they use a winch to steal one of the gravestones. Yeah, these teenagers somehow got access to a winch, which we see is that of Judith Myers as they drive off. And we also, these dicks. They'll do, goddamn kids will do anything for Halloween.
That's why one of them is named Bad News.
And we also see that it's the Judith Myers stone, and we also see that the hole left by the stone is going to glow with light, and weird sounds are emanating from it, but it cuts away before much more is shown. Like, man, I don't remember that being in Halloween. Was that in the TV cut?
No. Also, when Bad News gets killed, is there going to be a scene of Dana discovering him and her guy friend saying, well, there's your bad news?
No, because he doesn't die. Spoilers.
What? Are you fucking kidding me? You're a slasher movie! Do it right!
It's like Freddy's Dead, where hardly anybody dies.
Yeah, but at least body counts in Nightmare on Elm Street movies. This is Halloween!
Oh my god, like, Michael barely kills a single person, and he's mostly just shoving people around in this, I've noticed.
Back at Hardy's, Michael enters the store and skewers Hardy with a barbecue fork right through his head, so that's very Jason of him. And he then checks the mask display, passing over Freddy and Jason masks before claiming his classic mask and putting it on. It's like, yeah, this is pre-Scream, but it's almost there.
It's even dumber than Scream. This is Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3 level of dumb.
Oh God, no. Okay, let's move on.
You need a shower after that?
Yeah, but elsewhere, the news team is driving through town, and they're talking about a bunch of different shit. Like, you have, it's like the cameraman and the sound guy are constantly, talking shit to each other. When Andy is forced to hit the brakes to avoid running over old Father Carpenter, and this happens, 3 times, I swear to God, he's in the street.
I just realized we have Tony, we have Clifton, and we have Andy.
Yeah, Andy's the driver. I forgot to mention him earlier. Yeah, we then go to the Doyle house where Tommy confronts Mickey and Bad News about the stolen gravestone when they get driven away by masturbation jokes because this guy has no backbone to speak of.
And they're probably some of the worst masturbation jokes ever.
They just seem to think that he jerks off all the time, which, to be honest, if sophisticated VR technology like that actually existed, that's all anybody would use it for.
I mean, my buddy has a VR set, though, and he just uses it for Beat Saber. Take that for what you will.
It's like that episode of Black Mirror with the fighting game.
Oh, I think I just noticed another wrong detail. The headstone, the Judith Myers headstone, propped high up against one wall, not unlike it appeared over PJ Souls' head in the first Halloween. You mean Annie Brackett? That was Annie Brackett's body, you asshole!
It was the ex-Mrs. Chalice's body.
The screenwriter watched Halloween once and then just wrote the screenplay. I am 100% convinced of it at this point.
Okay, so let's, Goose Frava. And so back with the news team, they run into Meeker, who is guarding the place just in case Michael ever really comes back. And I like the way they use Meeker in this. It's a shame he disappears after his scene because it's kind of cool the way he's kind of sort of taken some Loomis-y qualities on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame he disappears. It's like, oh yeah, cool, Meeker's back. And then it's like, oh, he's not in it anymore. But there's a brief cutaway to a few yuppie fathers taking their kids trick-or-treating. And they're I think they're bitching about cell phone reception.
They be bitching now about how they want to get their kids' photos on social media. Nowadays.
Instagram.
I'm going to gram it.
But, I mean, we already have one internet-based Halloween movie. We don't need more.
This is kind of a precursor also to Halloween Resurrection stupidity.
Which would you say is worse?
Well, Resurrection got made.
Yeah, and And it had Busta Rhymes ordering Michael to leave, and Michael leaves.
You know what? As bad as Halloween Resurrection is, it wasn't incoherent.
Oh, yeah, I have no idea what's going on in this thing.
Yeah, it's also the same case. Like, okay, when it comes to, like, the worst Halloween movie, the worst one on, just, like, it offends me on every level is Halloween Resurrection. But if you're going for coherence, the theatrical cut of Halloween 6 is technically worse, just because its story gets liposuctioned out.
Along with Michael's gut.
Yeah. And Halloween Resurrection just, on just like like they don't take it seriously, so why should I level? That's just an affront. Is Alex still here?
I'm right here.
Oh, okay.
I just can't really say anything.
He'll say something here. But yeah, like on just like a personal affront, Halloween Resurrection is a personal affront to me. So it is worse than this, but at least it was coherent. Alex, what do you have to say about this?
Like about the whole Halloween, about like the worst Halloween movie.
Yeah, I mean, which is worse here for you, this script or Resurrection?
Oh God, I mean, this script is bad, but it's like Resurrection. Yeah, it did get made, but like Resurrection, it's so fucking boring. Like that's the main problem I have with it. Is just like I have no desire to watch Resurrection again ever. Like this is so batshit insane, and it makes no sense, and it has its boring moments, sure, but it's like this one at least had like some kind of bonkers like fun with it, for lack of a better term. Like I dare call it fun, but this is coming from the guy who can literally watch crappy movies all the time and still have some fun with it. So
I mean, let's just say this: if it had been produced like Halloween Resurrection, it would have killed dignity.
Oh, absolutely! Like this would have been completely jumping the shark, and it's like we're not even to the end portion yet. So
yeah. So let me keep going.
Okay.
The news team, we go back to them, and they're interviewing Meeker for the special, and then they decide to go to the cemetery. And Hopkins, the caretaker, spots the van arriving from his house and grabs a gun to go confront them with, not noticing Michael Myers lurking outside as he leaves. And so we go to the news team, and we learn it was Clifton's idea to film the graves of the victims, and we then go back to Beverly, Hopkins' wife, who gets killed by Michael when he rings the door as a trick-or-treater and then shoves a big sugar daddy from the candy bowl into her eye.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, is he working for Willy fucking Wonka now? Is this his chocolate factory? Yeah. Out at the cemetery, the news team, they find Judith's tombstone has been taken, and then they get driven off at gunpoint by Hopkins. So they leave. Then Hopkins returns to his house, finding his wife dead and Michael trying to sneak up on him. And he fires 3 rounds into him, but they just knock him down briefly before he gets back up and shoves Hopkins' face into a food processor, killing him. And I'm like, what is this script?
Wasn't Tarantino involved with this at this point, or not?
God, I forgot to mention that. Pretty much what happened is that based on his spec scripts, which were true romance, essentially, Mustafa Akkad talked to him about doing it, and he kind of, and then it never actually went anywhere. And he sort of pitched an idea, he said, about like Michael and the Man in Black going on a road trip, but that was basically as far as he got. But he got brought in by Dimension while this was going on to be a producer. And I'll talk about that after the script gets done, because we also have to talk about Scott Spiegel then.
Okay.
Okay, and so they just, and while Tommy is in his attic and about to use the virtual reality again, the news team rolls up across the street to interview the Wallaces, recording some stuff outside before going in. And I'm like, where are the Doyles during all this? I think they say they like retired and went to Florida or something.
And they fucked over their son?
Yeah.
Assholes.
Jesus.
Yeah, they record some stuff outside before going in.
Wait, what is it with Haddonfield characters retiring to Florida with this and Sheriff Brackett going to St. Petersburg?
I don't know.
I mean, after the shit they go through, I mean, wouldn't you?
True.
All right.
But again, I guess not without abandoning their son, I guess.
Then again, Mrs. Brody never moved to the Midwest, as Gene Siskel suggested.
This is weird enough without bringing the goddamn voodoo shark into it, so let's just keep going.
Okay.
They record some stuff outside before going in, and then we go back to Tommy, who comes out of the simulation, this time with a cut on his face, so it is just the Matrix. And the news team interviews the Wallaces, who they reveal that Lindsay, she's perfectly fine after years of therapy, and she lives in New York now.
Bitch.
She's now the Real Housewife of New York City. And they also say that they knew the Myers family well and showed the news team some of their old home movies after getting pranked by someone ringing their doorbell and running off. And it shows the Myers family along with Michael and Judith enjoying a normal summer day, but Dana runs for the bathroom when she sees a woman named by the Wallaces as Michael's grandmother who has the exact same mole on her nose as her Grammy. Dun, dun, dun.
People plot thread again.
Yeah, people say that it was a jump shark moment for Halloween 2 to do this. At least the series didn't do this multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After she leaves, Father Carpenter appears in the video as well, commenting on what a cute kid Michael is. So, oh great, he's also a pedophile.
Kid is a devil, isn't he?
And so while Dana is recovering from the shock in the bathroom, the doorbell rings 3 times and Mr. Wallace opens it, finding Michael standing outside, who blocks the door with his hand when Wallace shuts it, and then eventually he has to pull it out. And so after the door is closed, he wipes his blood on the peephole before walking away, and I'm like, he gave up on that easily.
Yeah.
And they talk about how it must have been one of the partiers from across the street and how Tommy only puts up with them because they help pay the rent. How are these 2 teenagers paying the rent?
I don't know. And by the way, it's just like, where's all Tommy's money going if they're paying the rent? Is it just going to this VR system?
Yep, he's got to get that VR version of PT up and running.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, then the internet will love him for it.
And Dana comes back during this, learning that Tommy lives across the street. And after Clifton gets scared by a trick-or-treater in a Myers mask looking in the window, and I still have no idea to this day what the fuck that mask is actually supposed to be. Like, do you walk into the store and go, hey, give me the really, really pale guy mask?
Give me the modified Shatner mask, please.
give me the Shatner and Devil's Rain mask. And so they leave to head. Dana insists she wants to talk to Tommy, so they leave to head across the street. And they are met at the door by a guy dressed as Pinhead. This is the closest we will probably ever get to those Michael versus Pinhead scripts.
Come on, Clive, where are they?
And where's that Mummy script, Clive?
Go ask Mick about that, I guess.
Yeah, it's like this is just Dimension flexing the fact that they now own Hellraiser.
It's like, hey, look at all the franchises we own.
Oh, God, I mean, they still have Hellraiser, Jesus Christ.
You still need to watch Mindhunters at some point because it's a lot better than this script.
Okay, that was random.
It's more fun than this.
Yeah. But okay, so where were we? Yeah, and they have to threaten Mickey to get him to tell them where Tommy is. And he leads them up to the attic, but Tommy is too busy using a different VR program, one which shows him the entirety of Haddonfield, including Hopkins's corpse in the food processor. What the fuck?
This actually reminds me of the old the Shadow radio series. There was one where these gangsters had taken this device that was created by this professor that would allow them to somehow see any image of New York City presented to them, and they saw the shadow, which he couldn't. They could see the shadow even though he would cloud minds. He couldn't cloud what the image was presenting to them, and that's what this reminds me of.
And so
that episode of The Shadow makes more sense than this.
Yeah. And he comes out of the program just in time to see the van drive off, and the Channel 6 logo has 2 more 6s added to it in blood. And ooh. And the audience then gets to see that Andy the driver has been killed and dumped in the bushes nearby because he's like, I'm going to stay in the van and eat my sandwich.
Can we just briefly mention that thank God the final movie did not get called 666?
No, Dimension saved that for Children of the Corn.
Yeah, you stole my joke. I literally told you that, and now you just okay.
Okay. Now, this is where we get to one of the actually kind of decent sequences in this script.
Yeah, it wasn't that. Yeah, this part's actually pretty okay.
Yeah, the van, it's supposed to be headed back to the Myers house. It ends up in a bog in the middle of nowhere, and Andy, the driver, is nowhere in sight. So Clifton sends Tony and Blake out to look for Andy, and they run into a tall, shadowy figure. And, I think one of them goes to approach it. And so 20 minutes pass before Clifton decides to go looking for them. And he and Dana drive around in the van, eventually finding the still recording camera stuck in the mud and flecked with blood. And they watch the camera's tape in the back of the van, showing Tony heading off into the woods and then coming back with a slashed throat. The camera then fell to the ground and Blake was massacred just off camera as 2 muddy boots passed by. So we're prefiguring resurrection with the found footage.
But it's actually somewhat suspenseful here.
Oh, also the pinhead thing also prefigured resurrection, because resurrection had those 2 guys dressed up as Vincent and Jules from Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, I forgot about that.
But so Clifton goes around to the front of the van to get started, and as he's trying to get it out of the mud, Michael appears outside the back window, scaring Dana and shutting the back door by jamming it with a stick. And he then goes around the side and grabs Clifton, smashing through the side window, and Dana manages to break the back window and is reaching for the stick when the van gets out of the mud and speeds off. And the van climbs out of the bog and onto the highway and stops, and thinking that Michael is coming for her, she grabs a tripod to clobber him, but it's Clifton who opens the rear door. So did Michael just give up?
Again?
Yeah, that was weird.
He's going to give up a lot in the script.
Yeah.
I know people say that they hate Michael's portrayal in, the actual Halloween 6. This is even worse than any of their complaints. Yeah.
The bog sequence is probably the best part of this script, and it's all downhill from here.
Yeah.
So as they drive away, Dana tells him about her Grammy and how she thinks that she's another sister of Michael Myers. And she even calls her up to ask her about it, but gets no answer, and the audience sees that she's been killed, and there is absolutely no fucking context to that. It just happened. And that's when what?
Oh, I was just commenting. I was just saying, oh, God.
Yeah, that's when Clifton slams on the brakes to avoid hitting Father Carpenter again, and they try to talk to him, but he's just raving madly and telling Dana that Big Brother is watching, and Michael then bursts out of the darkness, grabbing Clifton and disemboweling him. Then Carpenter then lets on that he knows that they're family, and Dana runs for it with Michael in pursuit, and Carpenter then walks over to Clifton's corpse, and we see that he's wearing the silver-tipped cowboy boots of the Man in Black.
Dun dun dun. No.
So done at this point.
The idea that Reverend Sayer was the Man in Black actually isn't the worst idea, but not the way this script does it.
Yeah.
It comes out of left field, and we all know this was just written just to clean up loose ends with 5, but that's just lazy.
That's something that actually is kind of an interesting idea when you think about it, and it kind of retroactively would tie the Man in Black into Halloween 4, which would make him stronger, but this script is not the way to do it, man.
Not at all.
Not only that, but then, because in Halloween 4, he was driving to Haddonfield, but then Halloween 5, he got off on the fucking Greyhound.
Maybe that old-ass pickup truck died on him.
Yeah. Oh well, decent idea.
Okay, so Dana flees from Michael and eventually climbs into a VW bus full of costume teens, and they're like, nice costume, you're playing frightened yuppie, right?
Oh my God.
What is it with this script and yuppies?
That was 80s anyway. Why? This is the mid-90s. I get it that yuppies are everywhere and they're annoying now. That was like an 80s terminology. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah, that was more of the 80s, mid-80s, so...
By the way, if it sounds like I am stoned, I am not. My Adderall has worn off, and I am completely pissed at this point.
All right, then they drive over to the Doyle house, where Dana enters, getting overwhelmed by the huge crowd, many of them wearing Myers masks, and creeped out by the tombstone being used as a centerpiece. And she climbs the stairs to the attic, and this time her knocks are answered by Tommy, who opens the door and lets her in. And Michael enters the house shortly afterward and passes a bedroom where a group of teens are playing strip poker with marked serial killer cards. What?
The serial killer cards were a thing in the 90s, I know that.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I only know about that because of a bit in Addams Family Values.
Yeah, well, and also that, and also, this is sort of a deep cut, but this ended up becoming a talking point on a lot of daytime trash shows. Was Hart Fisher had written a comic about Jeffrey Dahmer, and that became it became a huge talking point in Wisconsin after the family members saw it, and so they would have Art Fisher go on these daytime talk shows to defend himself, and next to him was like a guy who had produced like these serial killer trading cards or something like that, and people were like, "I'm so offended by this." And he was like, "Yeah, but kids can't buy this stuff. You have to go to a special store and ask for it." You know.
Okay, then.
That's more interesting than this script. I don't know what to tell you, Bruce.
Yeah, I know. But Tommy fills Dana in on his research into Samhain, and yes, I'm using the Halloween 3 pronunciation. Fuck it. How it's the time when spirits walk the earth, etc. Well, Michael walks through the party, and he gets kind of mildly upset at seeing his sister's tombstone. You'd think he would just go into full-on rampage mode, but he doesn't.
Yep, that would be logical, but once again, has anything in the script have been logical?
Logic left this thing with the Clockwork Orange reference, man.
I think it was already done before then.
It was done the minute like they wrote the first line of dialogue on the page.
And he tries to enter the attic, but the door is locked.
I think it was killed by that Mel Gibson name drop.
Like that one X-Men script with the Mel Gibson cameo.
Which one was that?
The Andrew Kevin Walker script. There's a bit where they're it's Professor X and Beast are driving in a car and they're gonna get stopped, and so Beast is like, "Help me out here," so they don't recognize me as a mutant. And so Xavier uses his psychic powers to make him look and sound like Mel Gibson.
Oh my god. Like, I know like this is like way later in the recording, but it's like now I'm just looking back on like, why can't I dream of Mel Gibson? Now I'm just imagining Mel Gibson just screaming into the phone at Dana. Oh, Jesus.
But
my Lakers tickets.
But so yeah, Michael, he tries to enter the attic, but he finds the door is locked, and Tommy tells Dana about how the virtual reality device can grant you access to places no one else is able to go, and he wants to use it to witness the old Samhain feast and find out what happened long ago, and he has this line about how, like, he can't get any further than a certain point, for whatever reason. And so Dana puts it on herself and finds herself flying through a massive cemetery, crashing into Judith's tombstone, before finding herself in a creepy, surreal forest. And she eventually arrives in the ancient Celtic village, coming across the Sacral King, who's meant to be the sacrifice in the festival, talking to a minister about how he doesn't want to die after all. And she then jumps ahead to the night of the ritual, where it's discovered that the Sacral King switched places with the minister and fled. And then the god's anger is felt, and as the village burns, the high priest curses the king's bloodline, and summoning an ominous mist, which he says will eventually find the king's descendants, no matter how long it takes, on a night when the stars are right. And so that's calling forward to the actual Halloween 6, where Tommy has his Windows 95 presentation about star alignments. And it then shows the star aligning on Halloween night 1963 in Haddonfield, where young Michael is consumed by the mist as it billows from a chasm and then goes and kills his sister. So yeah, that's the origin of Michael Myers, guys.
What a snooze. Like, wow.
And doesn't this sort of tie back to like that original novelization of the first movie? Because doesn't that bring all this Celtic stuff into it as well?
It does,
Yes.
yeah. Like, but that's so.
I'm just bored at this point with how the script handled it.
Yeah, like I mean, I've never really liked any of this Celtic bullshit with Michael Myers to begin with, even with the producer's cut of Halloween 6 and whatnot. But this is just.
I mean, you can blame Carpenter for that because he had to bring it up in Halloween 2.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
But then again, that's like in Halloween 2, it's like a weird tortured metaphor for how, like, in ye olden days, we were surrounded by evil spirits, but now the evil is us. Aha. But still.
That goes back to what Carpenter said about how there's two types of horror stories about the old man at the campfire telling you that the evil's coming from out there, and then there's the evil that's coming from within.
Yeah, okay, so we cut away to Michael, who's out in the backyard, and he's staring up at the attic window longingly, like he's gonna get out his fucking boombox, like John Cusack.
Oh my god.
And then this dude, dressed up as Jason, comes out on deck with a beer bong, and he says, "Hey, load it up for me." And so he drowns the guy with the beer bong. I'm like, what? Why?
Michael's deaths in these movies, at least in this script, are just they're not even laughable at this point. They're just kind of pathetic.
But okay, so we go back to the digital netherworld, where a series of surreal images flashes by, including Jamie Lloyd being held in a cage made of human limbs and bones, which that's the last reference we get to Jamie, and I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to mean.
It means that Michael fucked her. That's what it means.
With that boner he has on under the suit, like from that novelization.
Oh, God.
And thanks, Script, for giving me this visual close on Grandma's mole, which is pulsing, thrombosing. And to our horror, it spawns that creature, a wet bat-like thing that flies off and away. Grandma coos.
Someone's been watching Alien.
This guy has some weird obsession with this mole. I swear to God.
Mole. Okay, so it ends with the Sacral King getting killed by red-eyed wolves that then turn on Dana before she's saved by one of the soldier figurines and comes up out of Judith's grave again and then out of the VR. And she quickly explains to Tommy about what she saw and how Judith's grave is a portal to the other world and that they need to banish Michael into it between midnight and 1 a.m. on Halloween night in order to end the curse. Okay, I accidentally wrote midnight and 2 a.m. because every time like the midnight and 1 a.m. thing came up, I thought of Dude, Where's My Car, where they had to explain where they were between midnight and 2 a.m. And they were actually out buying the cops donuts. That's one thing you probably never thought you were going to hear a reference to in a Halloween video.
Oh my God. I mean, it's more interesting than this.
Yes, it is. And then
I should have saved reading In Defense of the Sleeping Beauty for after this episode, because my God, that was a masterpiece in screenwriting, to a degree. And then I was like, oh yeah, I gotta get back to the homework of reading this script.
Realize what he's saying there is that Skip Woods is a better writer than this guy.
That is bad.
But okay. That'll be a whole different episode, but
if ever that's ever legally possible.
But that'll be possible. But when Michael, this is another weird, goofy thing that happens in this, where Michael, who threw a couple out of the bathroom and stood up on the toilet and is hacking his way through the ceiling into the attic, and he somehow blocks the trap door with his knife. I'm not clear how that works. And he emerged. Oh, go ahead.
I wasn't saying anything.
But he emerges with Tommy bashing him over the head with his printer, and he then trips but then Dana trips and falls into the bathroom and then escapes with the figurine. And Tommy tries to fight Michael, but it doesn't last long, getting thrown into the wall before Michael drops down into the bathroom. And someone got into the bathroom again, and he drops down. They're like, "Eee!"
Oh my God!
This is some Three Stooges shit.
This is like I was thinking Three Stooges. The only other thing I was thinking about is in Scream 3 when the Ghostface killer throws the black guy out the door like he's fucking jazz.
We're almost done with this thing.
This is kind of reminding me of when Red Letter Media watched Robot in the Family, and it's like giving me a heart attack.
All right, and so meanwhile, Dana has driven away in a car and speeds over to the cemetery where she has a vision of Father Carpenter and is haunted by his voice as she begins looking for the grave. And
when I invited Alex onto this episode and I gave him these scripts, all I wrote to you, Alex, was warning: these are pain.
You weren't exaggerating, dude.
But no, she begins looking for the grave. Okay, we got one more paragraph of notes here to get through, guys. Michael shows up and pursues her, and she makes it to the grave, diving into the hole and holding on to the edge, getting Michael to dive in after her. And as he falls in, he's like, "Oh shit!" Like, he doesn't say it, but he gets that. That's kind of the impression of his reaction.
It's like a Roadrunner bit.
Yeah, like the ending of Green Lantern.
Oh my God.
And she tries to climb out, but Michael grabs onto her, and she stabs him with the figure to make him fall in, and he disappears after a howling sound is heard. And so Mickey, Bad News, and Tommy, they arrive in the truck from earlier, and they winch the tombstone back into place, sealing the portal. Dana leaves, saying she needs to file her story. She just walks away like she's going to go home on foot. And Tommy finds the figurine sitting on the grass before checking the truck's dashboard clock, finding out that the time is actually 1:14 a.m., so they're just too late. And so Father Carpenter appears sitting on a nearby tombstone and laughs maniacally. The laughter fades into the Halloween theme, and it ends. So what the fuck did that mean?
I'm going to kill myself.
I understand Mustafa Akkad's reaction to this thing, but he still kind of tried to move forward with it, which is weird.
With the other draft that we're going to talk about, which is so weird.
But before we get into that, it was around this time that, because what happened is that, the Dimension guys, they went to, because Tarantino had been talked to before, but now he was big. And because he was one of the Weinstein's guys, basically him and Lawrence Bender were brought in to produce. And there was an offer for Tarantino to direct, but he didn't want it. And instead they backed Scott Spiegel because one of the first movies Bender ever produced was Intruder, which was a Scott Spiegel film. Now, Spiegel is best known for co-writing Evil Dead 2. And so he gets brought in, and Mustafa is like, hey, we maybe want you to do some rewrite work. Here, take a look at the script we have. And it's so funny reading his comments on them because he's just like, I really don't know what was going on with that homeless thing. And just recently, as we were prepping this, he did an interview on Bloody Disgusting where he talks about how he kind of started conceiving his own version. He actually talked about how he did read the Rosenberg script. And he actually talked about it with Tarantino, and they specifically talked about the homeless scenes at the beginning. I'm just imagining those two sitting around talking about that.
I'm just imagining just Tarantino getting hung up on it. It was like, why was Michael Myers homeless? I really don't understand that.
And pretty much he started, Spiegel started trying to write his own version that he was maybe going to direct. And he kind of just started, he was mainly just figuring out certain beats and certain set pieces. He has this idea that after Halloween 5, Michael gets arrested and put on death row.
Ow!
Seriously.
What is Weinstein's obsession with that whole plot line of Michael Myers on death row?
I don't know. I think it started here.
Yeah, it did.
And so the idea is that he would escape, he would come back to Haddonfield, and there would be Dana, who is once again the last living relative of Michael Myers. And there's all these set pieces, she falls into an open grave, and she has a dream where she falls into an open grave and Michael buries her alive.
That's actually a moment in one of the Halloween comics, the whole Michael burying somebody alive.
Yeah, and how there was apparently now Halloween, Haddonfield has now embraced Halloween, and they've actually begun exploiting the whole history they have. They say it's going to be the 30th anniversary of the initial murders, so it takes place in 2008.
What? Of the initial murders, wouldn't that be Judith Myers though? I mean, if that's
maybe that's what they're referring to, but it's funny in my way.
Then it would be taking place in 93.
And there's a whole bunch of things. There's people dressed up as Michael Myers, and Michael kills all of them, and there's a version of it where he's on a train full of people in Myers masks, and then because he hadn't really figured it out, he just started getting smaller and smaller notes as he went along, and there's a climax in a cemetery. Okay. So what happens, right, is that they kill someone in a mask thinking it was Michael, and then it goes into Act 3, and there's a cemetery climax. And so all these characters, there's a big showdown, and Loomis is wheelchair bound, and he has weapons in his wheelchair.
What? Okay, you know what? It's cheesy. It makes no sense, but I would have paid to see that.
I would have read it. I don't know if I would have paid to see it, but yeah, I'd like to read that script.
Dude, you and I paid to see the holiday special of Star Wars. You would have seen it at some point.
Yeah, but the holiday special wasn't a mainline entry.
But okay, there's more. There's more. Is that the shape escapes, leaving the bloody mask on the cemetery fence, and then there's an epilogue where they do an autopsy on the person that they killed because they weren't. There's the autopsy, and it turns out that the person that they killed was actually Michael Myers, and they're like, so who did the rest of the killing? And that's where it would end.
That's kind of a decent twist. I don't know.
You see, it's I can't really gauge it because it's it never went anywhere. But it's it's a more decent twist than half of the shit that we've gotten.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, but eventually, apparently it was Mustafa who didn't want Spiegel around once again. And Spiegel feels it's because he was he was more on the Dimension side of things than on the Mustafa Akkad side of things. Maybe that's why they got rid of him. But, but Mustafa decided he didn't think he was a director for it, and by the end of April, he was out.
Huh.
Kind of reminds me of Gustavo from Halliston. A friend, he's a writer. I don't like him.
Oh my god. I gotta rewatch Halliston. It's been a while.
So that takes us on to this next script, which is titled Halloween 666, The Origin of Michael Myers. So we added the of Michael Myers to, satisfy the obsession of making everything the something of Michael Myers during this period of the Halloween franchise.
Yeah, well, personally, I actually just recently labeled the other script, the Rosenberg script, The Origin of Michael Myers, just because I am that compulsive.
And it's just like, okay, so... And this script in particular does not earn that origin title because it does not explain... This script does not explain shit. I mean, at least as stupid as it was, the Rosenberg Draft was an origin. But then again, I mean, who the fuck exactly...
Origin.
I mean, in Halloween 5, who the fuck is Michael getting revenge on?
I mean, he got revenge on Rachel, I guess, in the first act.
Poor Rachel.
Then again, when you think about it, the movie isn't actually called The Revenge of Michael Myers when you sit down and watch the movie.
Yeah, that's right. They added that for the video release.
No, it was only on marketing.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But, okay, so it's titled Halloween 666, The Origin of Michael Myers. It's dated May 1994, so this is a month after the Rosenberg Draft.
And a month after Spiegel left, probably.
A little bit less, because he seemed to be working on it through April.
Mm-hmm.
But, and the basic plot of this one is that it's kind of the same. You have a girl named Dana, only here she's a teenager who her and her father, they move into the Myers house, so that's another thread that gets picked up and put into the actual Halloween 6.
Yeah, and Tommy is still in it, still being scared and nervous, I guess, and everyone's kind of taunting him for it.
Only here he's living in a garage.
Which is even weirder. Like, Tommy's living situation keeps getting weirder as it goes on. What was another common thread I was thinking of here?
Well, let me finish. Let me finish the synopsis.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And so you have Tommy, who's living in a garage, and he also has VR equipment here. And he teams up with Dr. Loomis, who actually has a role in this, and they're trying to figure out, the origin of Michael Myers and, how to stop the evil and all that. And then Michael makes a comeback in one of the weirdest possible ways. And that's basically the plot of this thing.
Ready for more pain?
Okay, so I have to address this part. It's written by Irving Belateche. I am totally guessing on that pronunciation. And Lawrence Guterman. Now, Belateche has mainly he's written a couple of movies that I have never heard of, and they have really ridiculously low IMDb scores, in the 2s and 3s.
Oh, Jesus. That's such a mood.
And Guterman, he went on to direct Cats and Dogs, the first one. The fact that I have to say the first one is kind of depressing when you think about it.
There's 3 of them. That's even more depressing.
Yeah. And Son of the Mask. We're getting more Scream connections, guys. Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah. Oh, and if this were to have been produced, I imagine these 2 writers would have received a story and screenplay credit, while Rosenberg would have just received story credit.
Yeah, because there's just enough from Rosenberg in here for him to have gotten a credit. Now, I should also point out there is 0 background on this thing. I couldn't tell you what's going on with it, why it exists, what happens. I guess this is one last chance by Mustafa to try and save the VR idea.
It's kind of it's kind of like how this script doesn't explain the origin aspect of it.
Yeah, at all, despite being called the origin.
It landed in our laps one day on Script Drive, I think.
Yeah, and it was oh, what's this? And maybe it'll be better than the Rosenberg Draft, and not really.
That's sad.
Yeah.
But then again, it's the director of Cats and Dogs and the Son of the Mask, so...
So it opens with the newly refurbished Myers house being sold to Jake Ferguson, who moves into the house with his teenage daughter Dana on October 29th, 1994. So yeah, this one's 94. And we then go to a sanitarium in Decatur, Illinois, where a few workers are playing cards in the basement and make mention of a nameless coma patient who's been kept a few rooms over for the last 5 years. And the man in black, now called the Stranger, sneaks in and plays a TV report to the patient, talking about Haddonfield reopening for Halloween after 5 years. Like, he brings this tiny little TV with him. And the figure starts to breathe more and more heavily as it goes, giving away that it's Michael Myers in the bed. And he then kills the workers, snapping one's neck, impaling 2 through the head with an IV pole, and he stabs the last one with a syringe. Okay, I have to say this now. I forgot to say this about the last script, but so the cliffhanger ending of Halloween 5, where the man in black just slaughters all the cops and breaks Michael out of jail. So he either took him to the streets and dumped him in an alley, or Michael just went to yet another coma and he put him in some random sanitarium.
Only to break him out.
I'm really confused. I'm just like, why is he in a coma again?
Yeah.
There's no continuity.
Yeah, and we then go to Haddonfield High School, where Dana is introduced to the class and gets bullied by some bitchy girls named Sabrina and Laura, who want a handsome guy named Johnny to get a cage for them for Halloween. And more bitchy conversation follows in the hallways, and these are so 90s high school characters, too.
One of them is also named Tina, which is funny considering we just had a girl named Tina in the previous movie.
Honestly, and it's weird because this cast of high school students is so massive. I mean, there's so many of them, I would often forget to note down their names because it's just like there's like 6 people on screen at once.
Well, it's like they're just there to die, so...
And we should mention this script is not even that long. It's just 96 pages.
Yeah, it's slightly shorter than Rosenberg's. And this thing feels padded in places.
Oh, God.
Get out the Jack Daniels, boys. Lincoln's got some drinking to do.
Yeah, we get introduced to another clique member named Tina and Sabrina's boyfriend, football player Eric, and they all ignore Dana when she says hello. And later, when school is getting out, Dana thinks she sees Johnny smile at her, but then he gets in Sabrina's BMW with the rest of the clique, including another guy called Derek and a girl named Cindy as they drive off. As they go, they pass the now they say he's 27, Tommy Doyle, on his motor scooter, which he has in every fucking scene in this thing, and they mock him, calling him Too Slow Tommy. And and we learn he's currently living in Sabrina's garage. And Johnny tries to defend him somewhat, but then Sabrina shuts him down. And I am very heavily condensing that scene.
Thank you.
You know, honestly, just picturing Tommy Doyle on a motor scooter, I just imagined him as Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 2.
He had a bunch of pizzas on the front that Johnny stole.
But after some more talk about how Sabrina's parents let him stay there out of charity because they're saying, oh, we'd feel like Republicans if we didn't let him stay. That's literally a line in this thing.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking about what some dumbass online would have to say about that today. Like Geeks and Gamers getting his panties in a twist on this.
Oh, God. If it wasn't in a twist then, he's certainly in a twist now.
Yeah.
And so they decide to make a 70s themed party because they're like, oh yeah, something freaky happened to Tommy Doyle in the 70s. And let's
fuck with him even further by making a 70s party.
Yeah. And
we just traumatize him.
And we go to Tommy in the garage where he greets his pet iguana and jumps into a VR. Yeah. And where he jumps into a VR game where he plays as a knight rescuing a damsel, but she then turns into Michael Myers and attacks him, and he jumps out of the VR game and looks at his Michael Myers-related clippings on the wall. And I'm like, that says a lot about Tommy's sexuality.
Oh my God. So the VR system went from being an expository information dump to literally just Tommy Doyle's jerk-off center.
Oh, it turns into something else by the end.
Oh no!
And you haven't even read this one, Alec.
I didn't get a chance to, and honestly, I'm just here for the ride at this point.
Buckle up, buckaroo.
Okay, so we go back to Decatur, where Michael, who's now wearing his mask out of nowhere, watches as a carjacker robs a woman, then kills him and takes the car for himself, heading for Haddonfield. And we then go back to the high school where Dana is met by her father, who turns out to be the school janitor. And they go home to the once Myers house, and he talks about how he knows it's hard for her, but this was the only job he could get. And we see Michael watching the house, angered at people living there. And then we see Dana getting pranked by some neighborhood kids who just walk right up onto the porch. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they're like, oh, you're gonna die here.
Oh my god.
And later that night, Dana's looking through her items left over from her old high school, and we learn that she was a talented writer for the school paper. And she then sees some peeled wallpaper and finds a bloody handprint, Blair Witch style, beneath it, and she just doesn't think anything of this, apparently, because she doesn't say anything.
What?
And soon after, Tommy passes by and tries to get her attention by tossing acorns at her window, but she just closes the drapes and ignores him.
People thought it was creepy in the actual movie that, like, Tommy is, like, ogling his neighbor from across the street, but at least she's, like, of a similar age to him.
See, I never thought that was what he was doing. I thought he was just watching the house.
That really is what he's doing, but I mean, like, she interprets it as him, like, stalking her, probably.
Yeah.
At least she was over 18.
Yeah.
This girl isn't.
Yikes.
And so the next day at school, Johnny walks up to Dana and tries to make nice with her, commiserating about how it must suck that she missed her senior year at her old school. And I'm like, as someone who left high school halfway through, is it really that big of a deal? Because I switched high schools after sophomore year. But whatever. And he's about to invite her to Sabrina's party, but runs off when he sees Sabrina and Laura approaching. They tell her that she should really move out of that house if she survives Halloween night, basically feeling threatened over Johnny's interest in her. And not long after, Dana sees a figure watching from a distance out the window and thinks it might be Tommy, but it disappears when she looks away, and she doesn't get a good look at him, so we're repeating shit from Halloween.
Yep.
And we then go to Sabrina and Eric, who sneak out of an assembly to have sex in the driver's ed room, and there's a moment where she accidentally calls him Bill, and he's like, wait, what? But then she, like, distracts him with her tits.
Oh my god.
Okay, now I have a point to make about this. The only Bill in this script is the sheriff. So is she fucking the sheriff on the side?
Oh, I fucked the sheriff, but I did not fuck the deputy.
I was gonna do that.
Oh, god damn it.
Well, you stole my joke earlier. It's only fair I do yours.
Yeah, I did Dane Cook the shit out of you earlier, so. But Jake nearly walks in on them.
Dennis Leary, asshole.
I'm an asshole. Jake nearly walks in on them. Yeah, Jake nearly walks in on them, but discreetly slips out, and we are shown that Tina has been choked to death with celluloid and stuffed into the projection room. And I'm like, okay, this whole sex scene and the entire character of Tina and her death, you could cut this shit out of the script and lose absolutely nothing.
It's literally just there to pad out the runtime and give you a movie death.
And give you some tits.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to complain about that, but
it's just they're just crossing off boxes at this point. It's like, we got that scene, we got that scene, we got that scene, let's move on.
And technically speaking, even the janitor could walk in there and be like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, so later on in the hallway, Jake says hello to Dana, embarrassing her. And after he leaves, Sabrina cracks a joke about him cleaning up after the party. And I'm like, wow, this really is a 90s high school clique. And
90s. Well, there was a Mad TV sketch that this kind of reminds me of called Attractive White People with Problems, the new show on WB.
And Johnny tries to make nice with Dana again, but she brushes him off for hanging out with a bunch of jerks. And then Dana heads to the school library, reading up on Michael Myers and his impact on Haddonfield. I'm like, okay, so that's an interesting way to get the exposition out.
Yeah.
And she gets so absorbed that she stays there for hours, only leaving to meet her dad because the library is closing up. She could walk to the Myers house from the high school, right? Because, I mean, in the original movie, Laurie walks from her house to the Myers house and then to the high school and then walks home.
Yeah, but the geography in Haddonfield has been so inconsistent throughout the series.
Yeah, that is very true.
Yeah, the distance between Haddonfield and Smith's Grove is always different.
She waits outside for him, which is when the car Michael stole puts up to the curb. And Dana runs away, finding every door locked except for one that leads into the boiler room. And I'm like, is this fucking turning into Nightmare on Elm Street? And
more interesting horror movie.
Yeah, way more. She runs through a steam tunnel, eventually climbing up a hatch and into the janitor's closet. And Michael is waiting in the school hallway for her, but he backs off when the librarian and a teacher walk by. And Dana heads to a bathroom to clean herself up and hears noises again. And she flees, running around the corner, bumping right into her father. That is a very lengthy chase scene that, once again, I have very much condensed in note form.
Oh God, I'm glad I didn't actually read the screenplay, because if you're condensing it that much, I don't want to know how long and boring it actually is.
Like, there's this whole suspense bit where the steam tunnel starts getting narrower and she has to start crawling, and it just doesn't work.
Oh,
Yeah,
God,
and I'm also starting to notice a lot of like typos throughout the script on like important lines of dialogue. So in the school library scene, what's the subject, dear? They Myers family.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And also, I mean, again, you can't expect like smart writing here, because remember, Cats and Dogs and Son of the Mask.
Are you implying that the man who wrote this is a 5-year-old?
Would not surprise me.
So it's Robert Rodriguez's son.
Nah.
You see, no. That's a masterpiece. This is shit.
Happens in Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
They drive home and talk things out, passing Tommy haranguing the townsfolk about bringing back Halloween outside a local store. And what's weird about this version is that no one in town really seems to give a shit about this except Tommy. Like, in the last one, there was protests and stuff, and here it's just Tommy.
It's just like Bruce Willis in that scene in Die Hard with a Vengeance.
I hate Halloween.
There's like one black lady walking by, like, does a double take.
What the
fuck? Okay, so they arrive home, only for Dana to find that her room has been torn to shreds with the words "Get Out" written on the wall in red letters, because apparently they're also in the Amityville house.
Oh, I also find this funny. Too Slow Tommy is apparently his town nickname.
Yeah, everyone calls him that. And you find out it's because he apparently he was like shy and didn't talk to adults or something, and I'm like, no shit, he was traumatized from again, he saw Michael Myers for like 30 seconds, but okay, so the police are called, but the current sheriff, Bill Dogan, who might be the Bill mentioned earlier, we're not sure, says it could have been any number of prankster kids who did it, and it's here that Dana finds out that she's been living in the Myers house, something her father hadn't yet told her about, and she asks Dogan if it could have been Tommy, but he insists that he's more scared of the house than anyone else. And so she then goes out to look for Tommy, but he's already left the storefront that he was hanging around earlier. All right, so Tommy drives off into the woods on his motor scooter, finding a small cabin. And it turns out that Loomis lives here and he has given up on the fight, saying that it's a young man's game. Again. And Tommy thinks he still has one more fight left in him, though, and Loomis seems to agree once he hears about how a new family has moved into the Myers house. And also, Loomis's cabin also ends up in the movie.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, and so we then go to Sabrina and her friends outside her house, assembling the cage that was mentioned earlier. And their plan is to have the new clique member, Kathy, lure Tommy into the cage and drive him nuts with a sexy dance during the party. And I'm like,
you assholes.
And it's a grown man and a teenage girl.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
This is a Dimension script, huh?
Yeah, I was like, this has Weinstein written all over it.
And the rest of the group drives off to pick up beer, leaving Kathy in the cage to practice her dance. And that's when Michael shows up and he grabs her and pulls her through the bars until her limbs pop off.
Are you fucking kidding me? This was a precursor to that scene in the 2014 Asylum script.
Oh yeah, that did happen.
Why are all these ideas getting recycled?
Because Weinsteins have no originality.
Because that's what Dimension does with their horror franchises. I mean, look at Hellraiser 5 and 6. They're almost exactly the same movie.
And same with Hellraiser Inferno and Hellraiser Judgment.
Yep.
It's like take one somewhat decent idea or one shit idea and make it shittier.
Yeah.
And so Tommy and Loomis, they arrive not long after, and they find the body in the cage and call the police. They go inside the garage where Loomis talks about Salwin and how he thinks something is wrong with the Myers house. And Tommy mentions he uses the VR rig to find answers. And Sheriff Dogan and the cops then arrive, but the body has disappeared from the cage, and he thinks that it's a prank being pulled by somebody. And Loomis says that they'll have to do this one on their own and heads to the archives, telling Tommy to warn Dana's family about the house. And this is when we get the comedic shopping/shoplifting montage where they go to get the beer, And then they go to a thrift store where they basically steal their 70s clothes. And Sabrina finds these clogs that she's just obsessed with. And I have to mention that because that's actually a plot point.
Oh my God.
And so Jake, at the Myers house, Jake leaves to take Ms. Mandel, the librarian, on a mini golf date. And Tommy approaches Dana, who at first tries to drive him away, but is persuaded to follow him so he can tell her what he needs to say. And after getting spotted and mocked by Sabrina's clique in the BMW, Tommy takes her to the local junkyard to a room he has set up in this big metal box. I don't know what to make of that.
What?
And he tells her about how her family needs to vacate the house immediately, as Michael Myers will be returning soon. But Dana, who still thinks that Tommy is the one who trashed her room, she walks out, and Tommy shouts after her that he wants her to help capture Michael and that she should come to Sabrina's house if she wants to find out more. And he gives her the address. And we then go to Loomis doing research in the library archives, including reading a book on Samhain. And we see the words Midnight Gate, Unclean Spirit, and Tortured Evil, and Loomis seems to have a breakthrough. Okay, so he's like, oh no, it's a dead end, spends an hour in the local library, and gets his breakthrough.
God, I hate plot points like that. Just the simplest amount of research, and we could have solved the problem all along.
I think
why it took this long, I have no idea.
It reminds me of the remake of Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Is there any explanation of what happened to Jamie Lloyd? Is she just dead?
I don't think so. I didn't see it, and if I saw it, I would have noted it down somewhere.
So there's no reference of Jamie Lloyd?
I don't think there is at all.
I had no idea.
Yep. Dana arrives home again after being mocked by some trick-or-treaters and finding that her dad hasn't come home yet. And she hears what sounds like a voice calling her name, and she tracks it back to her closet, which appears to be vibrating. But before she can open it, though, she's surprised by Johnny. What is it with people just walking into people's houses without knocking?
Yeah, this is Haddonfield. Like, this place has had a serial killer problem for God knows how long, and people are just waltzing in.
And then Loomis himself does it in the actual Halloween 6.
Yeah, I know.
Like, oh, hi, sorry to barge in. Yeah, get close.
And there's a mention of how there's like an empty room in between her father's room and hers, and that's sort of important for later, but not really. And so Johnny asks her to come to Sabrina's party with him, and we then go to Tommy's garage where Loomis is sharing the results of his research. There has to be a portal for evil spirits to walk the earth on Halloween, and it was always said to be located in a graveyard, so
fucking A.
Mythology gag, a nod to the Rosenberg Draft, I guess. But Loomis tried looking for it there in Haddonfield before, but turned up nothing, and now he thinks it's somewhere inside the Myers house. We then go back to Dana and Johnny still in her room, and she tells him about how her mother was a reporter for a big newspaper, and how that's what interested her in writing to begin with. Johnny then playfully teases her about a picture of an old boyfriend when they hear a strange sound in the house, and Johnny goes to investigate, only to get grabbed by Michael, whom, I shit you not, in this scene and in a couple of others, he is actually called Mike Myers.
What?
Yes, really.
Oh my God.
And so he gets thrown against the wall and knocked out. Michael moves in on Dana, but she climbs out the window and escapes, running for help. And so since it's Mike Myers, is he going like, do I make you horny, baby?
Just like, what?
But she gets turned away by multiple people, but she finds Sheriff Dogan, and he agrees to check the house for her. He finds nothing, though, and as even Johnny has gone missing, and I don't think they ever address what happened to him.
Oh my God. That's just lazy.
Yeah, this script is bad.
You know what this is actually reminding me of? There was a trilogy in the late 90s of young adult Halloween books, like a trilogy for the Halloween series. The first one's literally called Halloween: The Scream Factory. And it focused on, because it's a young adult book, it focused on teenagers, and Michael's like going around killing them. I shit you not, this is actually what it reminds me of.
Those are probably better than this. But okay, so as Dana heads out to try and find Sabrina's house, Tommy and Loomis feed the floor plans of the Myers house into the VR program, and Tommy straps on the gear to go looking for the portal, checking for energy surges.
Just don't mind his maps of the Columbine High School.
Jesus Christ! Okay.
Okay, I'm better now.
All right, but he's checking through the whole house, and he's about to check Dana's room before Derek and Eric burst in and carry him off for the cage, knocking Loomis to the floor. And I'm like, oh, great, is he going to have another stroke?
No, fucking A.
But Dana then finds... Oh, crap. Dana arrives at the 70s themed party, and Sabrina's parents are taking part in dancing around.
Oh, my God.
And Dana then finds Tommy locked up in the cage. The partygoer's about to pelt him with pet rocks. Yes,
I really hate these characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just complete sociopaths.
She breaks the lock with a rake. That must be a very strong rake. And takes him back to the garage where Loomis is okay. He notes that it's 11:05 p.m. and they don't have much time. And as the party continues and grows wilder, Michael arrives at the house looking in through the window. In the garage, Tommy searches through the VR house again and comes up with nothing. Like, there's even like this weird unfinished area in the basement, and all I can think of is there's like a bunch of fake corpses in there with "Made in fucking Taiwan" written on them.
Oh my God.
But he comes up with nothing. And it's now 11:30, but Loomis insists they have to keep trying. And Michael then wanders in through the party, casually gutting a kid in the Myers mask who annoys him. And I'm like, Michael is really petty in this script when you think about it. He's like,
Yeah.
he then stabs Laura to death with a fondue poker.
Oh my God.
And
This is Boogeyman 2 level of stupid. What the fuck? Is somebody gonna get killed with a toothbrush, electric toothbrush, and shaving cream?
I mean, someone was killed with a candy bar in the last script. I don't know if we can get that much insane. Any more insane.
And like, it actually is described as like, she takes a while to realize what happened, but then like, that's when the party gets clued in and freaks out. And this is still better than Michael randomly wandering around a party and not doing anything like in the last script.
Yeah, at least he's doing something here.
I mean, petty or not. I mean, hey, if anything, Michael Myers is just acting like the audience in this case.
Yeah, and so upstairs we find out that Sabrina is cheating on Eric with Derek, and he walks in and finds out, and he's really pissed, but he's such a fucking simp that he won't do anything about it, and he just stands there and lets her cuck him. And we then go back to the garage where Dana decides to try the VR herself, as it's now 11:40, and they need to try whatever they can. What is taking them so long? The house can't possibly be that big. Maybe it's the Halloween 5 version of the Myers house.
Oh yeah, we're just opposite scale for no fucking reason.
Yeah, back in the house, Michael shoves a football trophy down Eric's throat, only for Derek to roll a keg down the stairs and pin him down.
This is just, there's no dignity to these scripts. What the fuck?
I'm gonna have to put a warning to headphone users in here.
No.
But okay, so
I apologize, people, but what the fuck? This is really just, it's starting to grate on my nerves.
Okay,
more and more.
He goes to get Sabrina, who is too focused on keeping her clogs. And when they try to sneak past Michael's body, he grabs Derek and force feeds him from the keg until he explodes. And the way it's described, it is totally just the eating death from Elm Street 5.
Oh, God.
And he chases after Sabrina, who, by the way, that was carried over from the Rosenberg Draft, but he chases after Sabrina, who trips in her clogs and tries to bribe Michael with sex before he just stabs her through the mouth and out the back of her head. So Michael killed Sabrina just like Netflix did.
Ooh,
oh my God.
Topical.
Back in the garage, Dana notices that her bedroom closet isn't present in the VR simulation, as it wasn't on the floor plans. And she moves her hands towards that part of the wall, and they almost get sucked in. She then takes off the gear, and Tommy goes in to double check, and he gets pulled through the wall into a swirling vortex with a red shape coming after him before he takes off the gear as well. So it's the deadlights, I guess. And they only have 10 minutes left now, and Loomis insists they must trap Michael in that portal. And that's when Michael bursts through the garage door, easily chucking Loomis and Tommy aside as Dana makes a run for it.
And Dana comes across Sheriff Dogan, who shoots at Michael but gets killed for his trouble. And she continues to flee, twisting her ankle in the process, which slows her down. And she eventually gets to the Myers house, and there's some cat and mouse stuff with Dana and Michael, where Michael tries to halt his progress, where he reaches through the door to grab her, which is very 2018.
Yeah.
And she bites a piece of his hand off, and then she goes into the unfinished room, and she climbs from that bedroom window into hers to evade him. And then she tricks Michael with a mirror, Jurassic Park style, and shoves him into the closet just in time, where he gets carried off by demons and the ghosts of his victims.
I'm trapped in the closet.
Mom, Michael Myers won't get out of the closet.
Oh my god.
We're back on South Park again.
I need to watch more South Park.
Okay, we're sentences away from finishing here. Later on, the cops are on the scene and Jake returns home, Dana reassuring him that everything is all right and that they survived Halloween. However, Loomis discovers that the bedroom clock was behind by 5 minutes, being that they ran out of time. And we then see Michael's comatose body getting dragged out of that unfinished space beneath the house by the stranger. And it ends. So yes, there is no attempt at all to explain the Man in Black in this script. He is just as much of a cipher as he was in Halloween 5.
Yeah.
What's the fucking point?
Dimension wants to profit off the franchise. That's the point.
It's just like the Man in Black is literally just Dimension, just dragging Michael back to life. Just like, no, we need another movie out of you. Come on.
We gotta drag him back to Decatur because he's in a coma again.
Yeah.
The script was shit.
This is absolute ass.
It might. I don't know which one of these two I dislike more. Because the Rosenberg Draft is bad, but it's at least batshit insane with Michael killing people with candy and all kinds of stuff. This is just boring.
Yeah, this one's just there's no life to it, and all the characters are just stereotype 90s schlock teenagers that you don't give a fuck. They're literally just there to die.
Yeah, I literally thought we were this felt like a direct-to-video script at times. Honest
to God, if any of these scripts were made, the Halloween franchise would have died. Dead there.
It would have ended up like Hellraiser.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me because it's Halloween. It was the first of its kind, and then we get to here where it's just let's just throw Michael in a fucking portal in a gravestone because why the hell not? We got no other ideas left.
Or, let's trap him in the closet with Tom Cruise and John Travolta and R. Kelly.
Oh, God.
And I pulled out my gun. I feel like the fact that there is no information on this out there at all proves that... I'm guessing it proves that, even Mustafa Akkad was not going to do anything with this. Because, he apparently was at least somewhat confident enough in the Rosenberg Draft to go and try and get directors involved. You hear nothing about this version.
Yeah.
It was literally just a matter of just keeping Michael alive, just to keep the cash cow going, just to keep the money rolling, because that's what it's all fucking about.
He did have it written into his contract that Michael Myers can't die.
Yep.
All right, and so from there, maybe there were more drafts done in between this one and what was eventually written for what we're going to do next, which is the first draft of Halloween 6, the movie as written by Daniel Ferrands. Not really, we don't really know for sure. For all we know, there could have been yet another take on the VR story.
They hold up a Virtual Boy.
Oh.
Bring the guys that did fucking Max Headroom to do it.
They just bombed with Super Mario Brothers, the movie.
God, I forgot that they did that.
Yeah, so no, they would have not been talked to for anything at this point.
They're probably...
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, but yeah, so eventually, Daniel Ferrands, he gets involved in around, I gotta skip ahead in my document here.
He met with them in 1990, if I remember correct.
Yeah, he apparently had met with them in 1990, but nothing really came of it then because that was when the legal battle was ongoing. And I guess they finally came back around to him in
94.
In 94 after this, and so he ends up doing he wrote a treatment, and apparently the treatment was so long and so full of stuff that like Mustafa Akkad got the idea to like take stuff out of it and save that for Halloween 7 and possibly 8 or 9. I'm like, oh, you're Fast and Furiousing the shit out of that.
Halloween presents Hobbs and Shaw.
Oh my god.
Halloween presents Bob and Linda tear the clothes off.
Off of Lindsay.
Oh, the fact that that's in the original script is
Kind of fucked up.
yeah.
But he said that one of the things that was in that treatment that was taken out to make it more, to save for Halloween 7 was that there was going to be this subplot that like a whole bunch of people were in Haddonfield were actually in on it. And there was like this big conspiracy, which you could sort of see in the draft. But I mean, it's the kind of a thing that doesn't really amount to much.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just fucking Gary Maine now?
Kinda, yeah.
And there was talk of trying to connect it to Halloween 3.
Well, that didn't happen just because I like Halloween 3 too much for it to become part of the Myers mythos.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like an early example of what we're getting now with Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, when you think about it.
Oh, yeah, the 2-part movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so it says that like among people who they went to, who they were talking about directing it at first, it was Jeff Burr, who had done Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and I think he did like maybe one of the Puppet Master movies.
He did, well, but technically he did 1, 4, and 5, which is technically meant to be one movie. He also did the 80s anthology movie From a Whisper to a Scream.
Which I've heard of, I've never seen.
It's on some streaming services. It's actually pretty good. And he did Stepfather 2, which I actually like.
Yes.
And apparently the Weinsteins were unofficial producers on that movie who had some control on it.
Yes, and it's speculated here that because they didn't get along with Burr on that movie, that's why he wasn't one of their first choices.
Yeah.
And then later on, Fred Walton, the director of When a Stranger Calls, was actually attached, but he dropped out over money issues. And the whole Beth death in the movie where Kara's looking out the window and sees Michael behind her was meant to be a nod to that because Fred Walton was going to direct.
And he had done, he had also done April Fool's Day.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And, it's kind of funny that he ended up dropping out of this because of money issues to end up directing The Stepford Husbands a year later.
Oh, dear God, they did make sequels to that. I forgot.
Yeah, and I watched a little bit of it. All that exists is like a recording off of TV of it. Yeah, there was a director named Matthew Patrick who was involved, and that's how cinematographer Billy Dixon got involved.
To talk about the script, now, the storyline here is going to be largely the same as the actual Curse of Michael Myers movie, but more so the producer's cut, and there are still a ton of differences.
Yes.
And it's dated, and it's just titled Halloween 6. There is no subtitle. And apparently...
they tried getting it back on in the shooting script.
Yeah, and apparently the Curse of Michael Myers was a joke that Daniel Ferrands suggested because of the trouble Halloween 6 had been through trying to get made. And they took it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to call it Halloween 666, The Curse of Michael Myers, and even tried to bring back the Halloween 666, The Origin of Michael Myers, and that was the title in the original teaser. And when I went to go find that title graphic for the thumbnail I was putting together for this, I'd forgotten just how shitty that logo looked.
Oh, it also looks terrible in the actual theatrical cut where they just have, bang, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers come at the screen. The only time it actually looks good is in the actual theatrical trailer for the movie. Which is a shame, because it looks really nice in that.
And it's a first draft dated August 23rd, 1994, so we are months away from the VR days.
And from filming.
Yeah, because then they only start filming in October.
That script is dated on Halloween 1994, so they started in November.
Oh, okay. But all right, so it opens, it's basically opening just like the producer's cut of the movie. You're in the dungeon with Jamie Lloyd, who's the 16-year-old Jamie Lloyd who gives birth while the stranger looks on. And one thing I will have to say, that Halloween 6 fixes compared to Halloween 5 is that it always bugged the shit out of me in 5 that the man in black is walking around with boots and they make the spur jangling sounds, but he doesn't have spurs.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 6, they actually gave him spurs.
Yeah.
But
Great job. You did it. You're amazing.
But so, he takes the baby and ritually prepares it, and there's no, where they're, smearing the bloody thorn symbol on the baby's chest, which, it's kind of funny. Did they magically smear it on? Because there's multiple scenes in the script of people trying to wash it off, but it doesn't come off.
Yeah, well, it's also funny here because, not funny. In this script, we actually get detailed flashbacks of the previous movies.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that it goes to, that's intercut with a montage of clips from the previous movies, as well as the newly shot footage of the stranger and his minions carrying off Michael and Jamie after the police station massacre that you do see in the producer's cut.
Yeah. If somewhat condensed in the producer's cut, there's a little detail here about how they blow up the place, and
yeah.
It's a little extended rather than it being done in kind of a flash.
I thought it was weird how it's just a weird way to structure this intro where it starts with the birth and then it just randomly flashes back to what happened at the end of Halloween 5. Shouldn't you, would it have made more sense to do the montage, then the new footage, then the birth scene?
I think it's meant to just kind of be all these thoughts that are running through Jamie's head at this moment.
Ah, so it's the art house Halloween.
Yes, it's just kind of, as Daniel Ferrands describes it here, flash cut to lurid shot cuts from the previous Halloween entries. A surrealistic blend of images and voices as Jamie relives her terrifying childhood ordeal.
But then how does she flash back to the first movie?
It's all information relayed to her. Does it really matter?
No, but still.
I mean, if Billy from Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 can remember the rape and murder of his mother despite him being an infant, or Ricky, I should say, not Billy, then isn't anything possible at this point?
Yes. And so this is where we go to the Myers house, and it's pretty much the same. Where you have
one more note. I do find it funny here. I'm glad this got changed in filming. Was when they take the baby away from Jamie, she does, "Damn you, what the hell? You blew it up!" Yeah. So I'm glad it got changed to her kind of spitting out, "God damn you!" In the actual filming.
Right.
And another thing I noticed here in the actual opening credits bit, it's somewhat different in each draft. The one in the shooting script is probably the best one, where it's actually somewhat like the opening credits to the first two movies, where you have the pumpkin and you have going in on the pumpkin, you have the titles, but then it's still intermixed with the ritual that's being performed.
Yeah. But okay, and so you get Danny in the Myers house. He's having visions of the stranger telling him to kill. It's pretty much the same. Okay, it's extended, but does it happen in the producer's cut where John Strode comes out of the bedroom and was like, "We all got fucking sleep"?
No, that does not happen.
Okay, I didn't remember that, but so we get all introduced to the entire family here.
Right here at night. Yes. Apparently that was all decisions that were made on the day of filming.
Interesting.
I assume they looked at their shooting schedule and realized that they would not have enough time to film it, and so they had to condense it.
Yeah, and then we, the scenes are largely the same as the movie, and then Tommy gets introduced watching, he's watching the Myers house like we were talking about, and he's listening to Harry Sims on the radio.
Not Barry, that came later for whatever reason.
Yeah,
it's because they wanted Howard Stern for this part.
Oh, that's true.
And he's even described as Howard as looking like Howard Stern.
They were never going to get him.
Yeah.
That's just.
You want to be in the 6th Halloween movie? No.
Then again, they got all the celebrities in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, so go figure.
Yeah, Margot Kidder.
No, I'm talking about the Chris Hardwick bit.
Oh yeah, Weird Al.
Weird Al.
Yes.
So random.
Oh, Mr. Weird.
Where I want to say Weird Al's joke is different between the two cuts of that movie.
Yeah.
I've only ever watched one.
No, well, that's a different subject for a different time.
Yeah. Let's wait to bullshit about that after we're done recording.
Yeah, where Michael Myers, basically he's talking about his experience with Michael Myers and going like he thinks the killer isn't dead. And so the midwife helps Jamie escape with her baby, gets her head impaled on the spike by Michael. And one thing I noticed is that the way Ferrands describes the mask is that he describes the white latex as distorting his facial features. That's almost word for word the way it's described in the script for the original Halloween.
Well, he was a huge time fan of the series, so I wouldn't be surprised if he actually got his hands on the script for the first movie at this point.
Makes sense.
And
we couldn't believe, wasn't there a belief at one point that he somehow read the Etchison script?
Yeah, that's possible because the whole Halloween band thing comes from there originally.
Yeah, and also the whole Halloween bands thing is actually mentioned in Halloween 5 by one of the teenage girls.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
I completely forgot Halloween 5.
I don't blame you. And so Jamie's escape, it's more or less the same. She finds the guy in the truck, the guy gets killed.
Although he's already driving, and so his death is somewhat similar to Earl's death in Halloween 4 here.
God damn it, Earl. You said you saw Myers. And she gets to the bus station and people actually show up in the bus station before she hides out in the bathroom. Like people come in on a bus. Mm-hmm. And there's a guy who's dressed up like a cowboy because this script does this thing where it tries to make every other incidental character into a red herring for the Man in Black. It does it in some all the drafts do some really strange things with that. There's one that sticks around even to the shooting script, which is the strangest one, which I'll get to. And instead of the barn scene, there's a car chase where she gets into the truck and drives away, and Michael's chasing her in what's called a familiar white van, and I could never pinpoint where it was supposed to be familiar from.
It's familiar in the opening scene at the police station.
Oh, I thought that was it, but it was just weird the way it was described there.
Yeah, so it's one of the occult vans that says free candy on the outside.
Oh, you see, I was waiting for there to be a pedo joke, but there you go.
Yeah, well, I already got the mass shooter joke out of the way, so
YouTube's gonna have a field day with this.
Yeah. And of course, the scenes with Loomis and Wynn in Loomis's cabin, they're pretty similar. One difference that's in all the scripts is that instead of the line about plastic surgery, it just says that his scars have faded.
I prefer the plastic surgery explanation.
Yeah, it is kind of funny that he went. I guess he just got tired of walking around and showing off his face and his hand to people.
Well, he says that at least I don't. It costs a fortune, but at least I don't frighten people anymore. Yeah, was one line. But also keep in mind, it would probably haunt him too to see the scars on his face every day, knowing that Jamie's gone and Michael's gone.
And what Wynn is saying to Loomis in this scene is, and this scene, by the way, is cut to absolute pieces in the theatrical cut.
Well, every scene with Loomis is cut to ribbons in the theatrical cut for whatever fucking reason.
Oh, I know why. It's because Joe Chappelle said he didn't like Loomis and thought he didn't like Donald Pleasance. He found them boring.
Fuck you.
He's like the face of the franchise outside of Michael Myers, and you're gonna fucking cut him the strip. Forget it.
Especially when he just died.
Yeah. And the whole scene with there's a difference in what's going on because the way Wynn frames it in the movie, the job offer he makes to Loomis to return to Smith's Grove, it's that he's saying that he's retiring and he wants Loomis to take his place, which is fucking hilarious because Mitchell Ryan is younger and in way better shape than Donald Pleasance is.
Yeah.
It's take over the job for a week and then find a new guy.
And in this script and in the revision, and it changes to the later version by the time you get to the shooting script, is here it's that Dr. Rogers has retired and Wynn is taking over Rogers' job, and Wynn wants Loomis to come in and take his old administrative position for him. So it's a nice little continuity nod to the original movies, because Dr. Rogers, he wants you to come back to Smith's Grove.
Mm-hmm. Right. And also seeing these scenes, seeing Wynn and Loomis as friends, I think is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I like that. Also, in the shooting script, there's a slight difference where Wynn is basically saying, I'm dying, I want you to take over for me, which is also, it's a good thing they didn't shoot that line, Because it would have been even more hilarious where Donald Pleasance is very obviously at death's door throughout so much of that movie.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, I'm dying. You're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ almighty.
I don't know why they changed this. I mean, the Dr. Rogers reference actually kind of reinforces the whole Thorn cult thing a little bit, in a way.
It's probably because they're just like, we don't know what's going on. Or like, they're like, oh, these names don't make sense. No one's going to put it all together.
Is it implied that they killed Dr. Rogers?
I don't know. I think it's implied that he just retired. I don't know. Maybe that's an interesting idea, that maybe there was like a power struggle. Because he does describe Rogers and his old gang of hacks being gone, so maybe there was a schism.
Yeah, that could explain it.
Although
we are actually more interested in talking about this script than we are about like the first two.
Yeah, that's true, and it's saying something because all the drafts of this movie are strange because it feels like the first act doesn't end until like page 50.
Yeah, there's even a problem in both the producers and the theatrical cut, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, although it does raise a question here. If Rogers was in charge for all those years, was he the Man in Black in Halloween 5? Or is Wynn just, the cult's designated Revolver Ocelot cosplayer?
I think the second.
All right, so where was I?
So that should have played at the end of Halloween 5.
But instead of the barn scene, like I said, there's the car chase, and they do a car chase through a pumpkin patch, which I think is pretty cool. And then eventually, like, there's this weird bit where, because Michael throws the body of the midwife out of the back of the van and through the windshield of the truck, and that freaks her out that she's driving, and she runs over Michael in the truck, which is kind of a neat little callback to Halloween 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then she crashes into a tree, and then Michael goes in to stab her, and we don't actually see it happen, and then we find out that the baby is gone. It was swapped out with toilet paper. So it's just like 2020, people trading their children for toilet paper.
Fucking A.
Well, I got the mass shooter and pedophilia joke already. I will get another joke in here. So we have a movie about a religious cult that kept an underage girl hidden away for years, and in the producer's cut, she's raped by her uncle. In the script, it's she's raped by an old guy, and they're worshiping her child. And there's also an abusive dad in the movie who slaps his daughter for having a child out of wedlock. Did I mention that this movie was filmed in Utah?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so Loomis and Wynn, they head into Smith's Grove, but when they hear the report that Jamie's body may have been found, instead of driving, they take off in a helicopter.
What?
This whole helicopter bit was cut probably due to budget, but also more importantly because of Donald Pleasance's health.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's also really funny because if you read anything Daniel Ferrands has to say about like the casting, or if you listen to his commentary, like he's super down on on Mitchell Ryan, and I don't really get why, because he's actually really good. But he's really set on the idea of Christopher Lee, and I think it's really funny that, he has such a problem with Mitchell Ryan, but he gave him the helicopter, which is like the thing he has. This is like his gimmick in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
And so we get the breakfast table scene with the Strodes, which is like, oh, we're prefiguring Rob Zombie's Halloween.
We're just
bitch, I can't work.
You see this? Once it heals, I'm going to break it again on your face.
God.
So he's probably gonna cut his dick and balls off and change his name to Michelle.
Michelle Mabel.
You do stroking the death. Maybe Rob Zombie had a new one by Halloween that we give him credit for.
Well, I hope she likes cripples.
I don't crawl over and I will fuck the shit out of you.
All baby does is cry. Wow.
Cry shit. But yeah, this scene, here's my thing with this movie, all versions of it. Like, I always tune out with the Strode drama because John Strode is just so ridiculous.
He's like a cartoon in that movie.
Kind of like it. I don't know.
I mean, Bradford English plays the shit out of it. I will give him that.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm always hooked to these scenes. And it's also interesting watching him at the Halloween 25 Years of Terror convention talk about, like, he can't watch scenes that he's in. If you haven't caught the motif yet of the father and mother characters being named John and Deborah.
Yeah, I thought of that. I wonder what they're saying anything about John Carpenter here.
And his involvement with the Halloween franchise.
Yeah.
It's not my franchise anymore. Never saying, but it's your franchise, John.
Never again.
And one thing I noticed between the drafts is that the line, "there's only one bastard in this room," is different.
Mm-hmm.
It's swapped between characters. It's John that says it in the early ones.
Mm-hmm.
It's that strange. And also Danny's costume, instead of being dressed up exactly like Tim, he's dressed up as a dinosaur.
Because Jurassic Park.
And and I actually kind of like that.
because there's also that bit later in the producer's cut where he says Tommy knows all about dinosaurs.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. It's nice. It's a nice little connection there.
But also the script is so mid-90s, he has like Power Ranger toys and Pogs.
Yeah, the Pogs are the Pogs get like an entire set piece later.
Yeah, that never got filmed because I'm pretty sure they said Pogs are already irrelevant. What the fuck?
And okay, so there's mention that like John inherited the house in this version, and we'll talk about that more later. And we also meet Tim's girlfriend, only here she's black and her name is Sissy. And there's the implication where she says, but yeah, Tim, your dad might see. So there's the implication that not only is he this cartoon asshole, he's also a racist.
Oh, fuck it, eh?
And we get Loomis and Wynn. They fly out to the crimes. I should mention Sissy is characterized a lot differently than Beth is. Like, she doesn't have like that misplaced righteous anger.
Well, yeah, in the actual movie, and I do like her in the actual movie, she's played as the 90s college feminist.
Yeah, some of the lines get kind of overbearing, though. Whereas it's like, you're kind of hammering it in there, guys. Like, could you imagine if it was Denise Richards, though?
I know, that's what I'm saying. That would not have worked. I do not see Denise Richards playing a 90s college feminist.
Yeah, and then Eon went, hey, you're great for a nuclear physicist.
But she ends up getting killed in the movie Valentine by Michael Myers, who wears a Cupid mask and has nosebleeds.
Okay.
Have you ever seen Valentine?
No.
I never even heard of it until today.
Really? Oh, it's one of those slasher movies that was geared towards women.
Oh, joyous.
Yeah, it's got some memorable kills, I'll give it that. But beyond that, it's also got David Boreanaz in it.
What?
Wow.
You've never heard of this movie? Okay, I'm ashamed of you guys.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's get back to it.
Okay.
Yeah,
but Loomis and Wynn, they helicopter out to the crime scene, where in this version, the thorn symbol has been burned into the entire pumpkin patch like it's a goddamn crop circle, and somewhere nearby, Mel Gibson is running around his house swearing.
I was imagining just Thomas Jane's Punisher walking by.
And so Loomis, he's arguing with Sheriff Holt, who's the new sheriff, who's in the movie, but not much.
There's one funny thing is that there's a scene in the rough cut right after Jamie dies, and it's in the shooting script where they're arguing back and forth. It's also a scene that kind of goes nowhere, but it's in the rough cut of the producer's cut, but never in the producer's cut.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
And so there's a number of scenes, just like in the movie. There's them. They get to the college campus, the junior college campus. And they set up a thing where Kara's looking at like Danny's drawings and she sees the word thorn and the symbol, which is saying up something that's different here from the movie. And also they're setting up the festival here, but it's like a full blown carnival with like a Ferris wheel and everything.
Yeah.
And, we see Jamie getting taken to the hospital, Tommy showing the baby to Loomis. And this is where he says, like, he specifically refers to the Strodes as cousins of the baby instead of that really awkward line of like, relatives of the people who adopted Lori.
Relatives of the people who adopted Lori. Speak English?
And he takes the baby home and names him Kyle. And here's the thing. I want to talk about the Strode thing really quickly here. I really don't think they needed to be Strodes.
at all?
Probably not. I mean,
it's in there later because of Deborah's, saying why John moved them into the house, and she says, your brother could never sell this place.
Which is different in this draft, too.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just feels like needless, kind of like, oh, here's a nod, blah, blah, blah. And I really just do not get the whole thing the movie does, where it's like, if you're in Michael Myers' house, he considers you part of his family. Like, what?
He's just going to kill you because he's Michael Myers.
The whole shit is that he kills people.
So does that mean that in Halloween Resurrection, he considered Busta Rhymes to be part of his family?
Oh, absolutely.
I find it funny that the Tyra Banks' death scene is it's filmed. It's in a work print cut, but it's not on the DVD or Blu-ray anywhere under the deleted scenes footage.
Yeah, there's weird things like that across multiple series, but
yep.
Like there's a whole bunch like deleted scenes from Nightmare on Elm Street that have never been officially released.
Yeah. Well, even in here, getting back to that Sheriff Holt scene, it's not on the actual Blu-rays for Halloween 6 for the footage for the special feature of deleted scenes.
That is odd.
Yeah, when they say deleted scenes, they're referring to deleted scenes for the theatrical cut.
Oh.
So weird.
Yeah.
And it continues from there pretty much like the movie. And then we get Danny on the playground at school playing Pogs with this guy, and Danny's way too good. And then he keeps winning. He wins the final time. And apparently he wrote "Die Fat Ass" on one of the Pogs.
What the fuck?
And the guy and the kid comes after him, and then Danny, cause you're hearing the voice going "Kill, Danny, kill!" And then he just takes the tetherball and smacks the kid in the face with it. And I'm like, oh, we're going into Napoleon Dynamite territory now.
It's about Napoleon.
And this is the scene, and Danny goes running out of the playground and smacks right into Tommy. So this basically got replaced by the scene on the street in the movie, and I like it better here because it's actually kind of a nice callback to the original movie where Tommy is now in the place of Michael Myers.
Yeah, I was about to say that. That kind of reminded me of that, and I thought that was interesting.
And also about Tommy, they're playing him really creepy here. And there's a weird thing they do when he goes to the bus station, and it's specifically mentioned in every draft that he's wearing cowboy boots. Are they trying to, set him up as a possible red herring for the Man in Black?
They might be. I mean...
Because apparently the sheriff is supposed to be one, too, because it's specifically mentioned that the Man in Black smokes cigarettes in this version, and the sheriff will, be chucking away his cigarettes every now and then.
Because no man ever wears cowboy boots and cigarettes.
Yep.
Well, it's just a direct nods, more or less. Is this why point it out if it's not important?
Because you get the scenes more or less, because you get Loomis who goes to the house and talks to Deborah. You get Deborah calling up John, and that scene happens, and that's followed by a new scene where the Haddonfield mayor Clifford Denning visits John Strode at the realty office and tries to buy the Myers house from him.
Kind of fucking late.
Yeah, and this is where we find out that John inherited the house from his father and says he could never sell it. So the implication here is that John is Laurie's adopted brother?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
There's more family connections.
I prefer the way the movie does it, because I think it's kind of hilarious that the brother just kind of fobbed the murder house off on John.
You got a new here's your adopted son. You want a weird murder house? Here you go.
And so Deborah gets killed like she does in the movie. That's a scene that's almost beat for beat the same.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear them talk about it on the commentary track with Daniel Ferrands and Alan Howarth. Is even though the movie got cut to ribbons and even though it got reshot, that scene, maybe there were some sound effects and maybe there were music cue changes in the theatrical cut, but it stayed the same.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. And so we then go to a town hall meeting where Dennings is defending the choice to bring back Halloween before some angry townsfolk. And I wish we got a little bit of this in the movie because there's the Halloween ban, but no one seems to be particularly upset about the fact that it's been lifted.
Mm-hmm.
And it's especially strange after having read the Etchison drafts of 4, where it's like, that's like the entire point.
Yeah, that's the plot of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And during this meeting, Loomis, Wynn, and a number of like the staff members from Smith's Grove arrive, saying they're going to help the police stand watch over the town. And like there's weird moments where like Wynn will flash a badge and like what?
Yeah.
Is it like Rush Hour? Flip it open, flip it closed.
Yeah.
In the name of the law.
Well, this is much better than a Brett Ratner movie, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Well,
I love Rush Hour, but still. But like Sheriff Holt isn't too happy about this, and he gets like a speech where he's like, yeah, Meeker may let you do whatever you want, but I'm not him, blah 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 blah. And things continue like in the movie, but you get the festival is a fully fledged carnival. There's this massive Halloween tree as the centerpiece, which essentially what it is that they'll light it up and then candy will drop out of it.
Isn't that a reference? Hold on here. Yeah, it's a Ray Bradbury reference.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And, the mayor and his wife are also present attending the carnival. And the mayor, by the way, is also a red herring for the Man in Black because he wears black and he smokes cigarettes.
Well, isn't he the man in white in this case?
Ha, ha, ha.
No, isn't that what he's called?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I thought he was dressed in white. That's what I remember Daniel Ferrands saying.
Oh, I don't. Maybe I got it wrong, but he is supposed to be yet another red herring.
Yeah, the idea was that he would make people think that he's the Man in Black because he's dressed in all white, that it would somehow be this odd, like herring or something. I don't know.
Okay, then we go to an extra scene where Loomis and Wynn patrol in the helicopter, and they're talking to Holt over the radio, who says they checked the Strode house and that nobody is home. And they get word that Jamie has survived her surgery, and they fly off to the hospital. And in between all of this, Kara finds Tommy and Danny in her house like in the movie, and then they move across the street to Tommy's room, where she explains the Thorn mythology in this version, because she was researching it because Danny drew it, and this is so much better than what the movie does.
Yeah.
Whereas Tommy just knows everything, even though he never saw the Thorn symbol at all in Halloween 5.
It's just like, no, I've been doing all my research. I watched the other Halloween movies.
Yeah.
And it's explained here that the Thorn rune represents a demon, and that marking someone with it is essentially cursing them with the devil. It's not like explained as like a ritual thing where you have to kill your entire family, blah blah blah, for the good of the village.
And what were you saying, Alex?
I was just saying, hey, sometimes the simplest explanations usually the best ones.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is seeing Kara do the investigating at the library and people kind of like following her around.
Yeah, that was interesting. I like that she actually feels like she contributes something to this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so Danny hears the stranger talking to him, and he takes Tommy's Bowie knife and wanders off. And at the hospital, Loomis finds out that Jamie was pregnant and calls up Tommy, but he and Kara have already left to go look for Danny at the carnival, having been directed there by Mrs. Blankenship, who says that the voice called him like it did to that other kid who lived in the Myers house, so Michael.
Mm-hmm.
He tells Wynn to get Holt, saying that he plans to bring the baby to his cabin.
Isn't there more information about Michael's ancestors in this?
That's a bit later.
Oh, okay.
Because I wrote it down.
Okay.
And this is real different from the movie here. Like there's like more back and forth to the carnival. And right after Tommy and Kara leave, John comes home. He's stumbling around and swearing. And we get like an extended sequence here where he makes a TV dinner. He sits down to the TV, and it's Halloween 3. And then he changes the channel. The microwave beeps. He gets back up, and it turns out that apparently Michael has moved his dinner to the table. And so he takes his dinner back. It turns out the TV has been turned back to Halloween 3, and that's when the power goes out. And he's like swearing up and down, thinking that Danny's doing this for some reason. And then he heads down to the base where the lights go out, and then he gets pinned to the fuse box, so it's the same death as the producer's cut. There's no head explosion.
Oh, that's good.
And Tommy and Kara, they're followed to the carnival by a white van, which is being driven by the stranger. And there's another red herring that's scattered throughout this thing where the Harry Sims show people they're driving around in the white van and like making lewd announcements over a loudspeaker. So, ooh.
Yeah. Oh, and I just noticed that when John's walking into his house, he's singing Pretty Woman.
Yeah, and they split up with Carol. Yeah, there's like a bit of like a car chase where they're being followed, but it's not really much of anything. They split up with Carol looking for Danny and Tommy looking for Tim and Sissy. Loomis arrives at the boarding house, finding Tommy gone, and Blankenship tells him he's gone to the carnival, and she also mentions that she was babysitting Michael Myers when the voice told him to kill, just like his great-grandfather in 1895, and her parents told her to never approach the Myers house, and she never did.
But she babysat Michael.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess they went across the street to her place?
Yeah, I guess. One of those details could have been left out about her not going into the Myers house, I think.
Yeah, and Tim and Sissy ride the Ferris wheel, just missing Danny and Kara, who has caught up to him. And Danny then runs into the House of Horrors just as Harry Sims enters, with Kara following close behind. And Tommy catches sight of the stranger with the thorn tattoo on his wrist and pursues him with a gun in one hand, the baby in the other.
So it's John Woo now.
Yeah, it's just, hey, little piss pot, you saved the day. And he gets stopped and arrested by the police before he can catch the stranger, who also enters the House of Horrors, but Loomis bails him.
Just like in the Etchison Halloween 4 script.
Yeah, that's true. And Loomis bails him out, though, using his newly deputized status to get the cops to hand Tommy over. So yeah, there's more badge flashing.
Yeah.
And Tim and Sissy, who notice that it started raining, head home for some sex. And in the House of Horrors, Danny seems to be stalking Harry Sims at the voice's insistence, but he gets grabbed and pulled into the shadows, which was actually really cool. And then it turns out that it was Kara doing it, leaving Sims to be brutally cut to pieces by Michael. I like this whole House of Horrors sequence. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I get why it was dropped, because the subsequent drafts, they really kind of like trimmed down the back and forth.
Right.
Because in the movie, Tommy leaves them behind and goes to find Loomis as there by himself, as at the carnival by himself, and that's there even from that early revision.
Yes.
And I think it's probably for the better for that.
Yeah, considering that we're going to have another house chase sequence with Danny and Kara and Michael, I do think it made sense for it to get dropped.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm struggling to stay awake right now, so
we're almost done here. Dude.
Yeah, we're getting through it. Tommy and Loomis drive off to his cabin, with Loomis insisting that Wynn will pick up Kara and Danny. As they go, Tommy tells Loomis that there must be a cult involved and theorizes that they want to make the baby into the next killer, a Michael 2.0, so to speak. And we then go to Jamie in the hospital, who dreams a flashback about how she was raped by the stranger who fathered Kyle, while Michael watched in anger from a cage, and she awakes to see the stranger standing over her, who cuts a thorn into her wrist. So yeah, instead of Michael being the father, it's now Wynn.
Made more sense, I believe.
Yeah, and I don't know why they changed that.
Yeah.
And it's creepier and more graphic here, too, because he actually, like, disrobes and gets on top of her.
Yeah.
And they actually, what's fucked up about this flashback in the shooting draft is that makes the shift to Michael being the baby's father. And instead of just standing over her like he does in the producer's cut, it has him lay down on her. It's like, oh
my God.
No, Michael, no.
No. Think of the fan base.
Yeah, they're going to tell me I'm an idiot for liking this movie years later.
So instead of killing her in the hospital bed like in the producer's cut, he cuts a thorn into her wrist. And then at the carnival, the crowd is waiting for the tree to be lit while Kara calls both Tommy's apartment and her house, but neither picks up, as Tim and Sissy are too busy fucking. The tree is lit, and the kids go to gather candy from under it, but they get dripped with blood coming from the shredded corpse of Harry Sims tied up in the branches, and this is so much better than what the movie does.
Yeah.
It's raining red.
That whole scene is just lame.
So bad.
Mommy, it's raining.
Yeah.
Like, you weren't put off by the red rain.
It's raining red. Why? How are you not scared?
No, she goes, it's warm. Why is it warm?
Oh, I don't know, because it's fucking bodily fluid. Look up.
Yeah.
And then the rain from the incoming storm makes this worse, spattering it over the crowd, which panics and bolts, and Dennings gets trampled to death by them. And it says, I love the way it describes it as chaos now reigns over Haddonfield. Like, it feels like we're getting a taste of Halloween 2.
Yeah, and also, this would have, like, the helicopter shots would have come into play with, like, showing them scanning the streets for Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just got John C. McGinley going like, someone do something. And Loomis and Tommy arrive at the cabin, only to find that the inside has been painted in blood with a giant thorn rune. And Loomis realizes that Wynn has betrayed them, as only he knew they were going there. And there's a cutaway to Wynn, dressed as the stranger, flying away in the helicopter with a hypnotized Jamie with him. They then get surrounded by cultists, with Tommy being forced to cut and run, leaving Loomis and the baby behind and driving off in his truck. And so Kara and Danny, they return to Tommy's room, and we go back to Sissy and Tim, the latter of whom Michael quietly kills with a straight razor to the throat. And Kara sees Sissy from the window and calls her up, seeing Michael approach from behind, but the warning is too late to help, so it's the same as the movie. And then she sees Danny crossing the street and follows after him as he enters the Myers house. And then here comes a sequence that doesn't change across the drafts. There's this cat and mouse chase through the house where it eventually ends with, it's actually really cool kind of callback to the original movie because she's finding all the bodies, and you even have Deborah's body fall out of the attic.
Mm-hmm. But in the draft, don't they go into the basement as well again?
Yeah, they go down into the basement, they find John's corpse, and they're climbing up out of the window. And, it looks like Danny is going to, run away because of the voice, but then he comes back and helps her get out. But this isn't all the drafts exactly like this. It's in the shooting script, they just didn't film it, I guess.
Yeah, they probably, again, when you get to actual filming date, you actually have a schedule to maintain. So...
And they flee from Michael across the street to the boarding house, but the door is locked. And the audience sees that Blankenship has been strangled to death with her phone's cable. So she's not a cult member in this version.
I guess, yeah, they still should have kept out the line about her never going into the Myers house, though. She was going to babysit Michael.
And now that is something that changed as early as the revision, so.
Her being a cult member?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because what happens is that it's structured more like the final movie where you have Tommy goes off to the carnival by himself and finds Loomis, and then they come back to the boarding house, and that's where the cultists start bursting in through the windows.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember why that was done. I think Daniel Ferrands says that that's when the producer's cut, even for him, starts to wane a little in quality.
Yeah. And so it's a little bit more like it, but it reads a bit better in the script, and there's a twist reveal that Blankenship is a cultist because she's holding the baby and then she just goes nuts.
Yeah. Hello, dear.
And then from that scene, all those characters, they get kidnapped and go immediately to Smith's Grove. There's no driving over there.
Yeah, I think we've been drugged.
We were.
Yeah, that scene was pointless.
They head around back, Danny running way ahead and enter through the back door, and then the building is assaulted by cultists, and Kara finds Danny with Wynn watching over him, and she jumps out the window to escape and comes to on the lawn later with police and emergency workers. Tommy arrives on the scene, telling Kara about how the cult took Loomis and the baby, and when Sheriff Holt mentions that Danny was taken by a doctor to a hospital, Tommy realizes it must have been Wynn, and takes Kara with them as they drive off to Smith's Grove. Now, the revisions are a bit better where they just are all at the boarding house and then they get kidnapped by the cult and taken directly to Smith's Grove.
Right.
That's all better than all this back and forth to the cabin and all that.
Yeah, because it seems kind of excessive.
The revisions are actually, for the most part, not, there's a lot of sensible revising being done in those, but then there's some other stuff where it's you don't do anything with Jamie, you make Michael a rapist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we then go to Wynn at Smith's Grove, who's using his key card to go through security gates. Those are important later. He visits Loomis in his office, ordering his shackles be taken off, and he explains that the staff of the hospital have all been a part of the cult since the beginning, but that Loomis was deliberately kept out of it, and he now offers him a chance to join. And he talks about how, over the years, Loomis had unwittingly helped bring Michael back to the cult every time he escaped. But Loomis's stroke in Halloween 5 necessitated Wynn getting involved to bust Michael out of jail. Now, I have to question this because why would that make... First off, he was in town as the Man in Black well before the stroke happened.
Yeah.
And wouldn't the police just send him back to Smith's Grove anyways?
I guess you could have, well, they had lost him already since Halloween 4.
Yeah, so maybe rewrite the line to try and explain it.
Yeah, we knew Michael would be in Haddonfield a year later, and that's why I came.
And then when he also explains that the curse runs through Michael's bloodline and exists in every generation, which is why he took and impregnated Jamie to keep the curse going.
And it also explains why Jamie attacked her adoptive mother.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. That the voice would have been calling to her.
Yes. And so, and then he then sees Tommy's car pulling up at the gates and has Loomis carried off, promising to show him even more. And so Kara and Tommy, they follow a white van around the side of the hospital, and they spot a crazed Jamie and follow her to a hatch and into the tunnels. It's basically retracing her escape route from earlier. And they find her in her cell, now brainwashed and crazy and attacking them with a knife. And they flee, running into Wynn and some cultists who hustle Loomis away past a heavy door. And surrounded, they back into an elevator, but Kara is grabbed and dragged off by the cultists. Now, once again, the revisions simplify all this greatly. Unfortunately, they also take Jamie out of the third act entirely.
Right.
Yeah.
And Tommy takes the elevator up, finding Wynn's office, and there's a weapons cabinet in there with rifles and explosives. So he takes some explosives and a rifle and his key card.
So some maximum overdrive shit, just some random fucking...
Now it's like turning into Metal Gear Solid with all this sneaking around with the security card.
A surveillance camera?
Oh, we should mention that Daniel Ferrands' intent was that Michael is the one in charge of the cult, not the other way around.
And can I talk about how that makes absolutely no sense with what's about to happen?
Sure.
So, okay, we go to the ritual chamber, where Wynn is showing off how he can control Michael. He's like making go walk, stand, blah, blah, blah. And he cuts his own hand and goes, pain, Michael, pain. And so Michael feels pain. He is controlling Michael Myers in this scene.
Did they get rid of this scene by the shooting script? Because I know it's in the revision draft.
They get rid of it it's not in the shooting script.
Okay, so then by that point, that intent was started.
Yeah.
But then again, in the shooting draft, in the actual producer's cut, there are scenes where they could have done to emphasize that a little more. Like in the ritual scene at the end, Michael's just kind of standing off to the side and not really presiding over the whole thing.
Like have him stand on like a dais or something.
Yeah, something to show that he's over these people, not just off to the side.
Yeah, that excellent blocking by Joe Chappelle.
I mean, it's still a well-blocked movie, but there are just points where they just sort of fumble it.
It's like that weird thing at the end of the Suspiria remake where Helena Marcos is just kind of sitting on a stool off to the side because they had Tilda Swinton play 3 different characters.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a weird thing in that movie, but okay. And then he's like, I can make him do anything. And this line, I get that it's a continuity nod to the original movie, but this was just so groan-worthy. I even taught him how to drive a car.
Dun dun dun.
That was not good.
There are some things better left unexplained.
It's already explained also in the novelization for the first movie that Michael observed Loomis's driving.
Yeah, it's just...
I don't need it explained in dialogue.
I even taught him how to ride a car. It's like that's the big reveal of all. Like that was the biggest thing that was bogging everyone's mind. The Halloween franchise. How did Michael Myers learn how to drive? Find out in Halloween 6.
Also notice that they use the term Lord of the Dead.
Yeah, I did notice that. And so he also, because they're standing on a catwalk over like I guess the open cage Michael's in. And Wynn drops his secretary into Michael's cage for no reason.
It's like a Thulsa Doom, but
it comes off more Dr. Evil, if I'm being honest.
True.
Why must I be surrounded by friggin' idiots? And so the ritual begins with Wynn exhorting Danny to kill the baby for Thorne. And this, I already don't understand why they need the baby in the movie, because if they want Michael to kill off his bloodline, why can't they just have him kill Jamie and then end it 5 years before the movie starts?
6 years.
6 years, sorry.
That'd be too easy.
But here it's like they're talking like they want the baby they want the bloodline to continue, but then they're going to have Danny kill the baby and become the new Michael. It's confusing in this draft.
Yeah, is it explained in the revised script or shooting script?
Well, in the revised script, that's where they switch it to Kara's tied to the altar.
Okay.
And like
makes more sense.
And like
there.
Danny's going to kill her, and I think Michael's going to kill the baby. I think that's what's the idea of what's going on.
Yes, now I remember Daniel Ferrands explaining this also in the audio commentary, that the idea is that this baby was born just to be sacrificed as and so it would be Michael's last sacrifice and Danny's first sacrifice.
I guess so. I guess they needed the bloodline to continue just so they could find the right kid.
Yes. Now it makes sense when that is explained.
Yeah, and so Kara pleads with Jamie and Danny, and the line she has here to Jamie, it's like, Jamie, it's your baby, don't let them do it to your baby, is almost word for word what she says in the movie. Only in the movie she's talking to Michael and going, Michael, it's your baby.
Yep.
And Danny seems to snap out of it, stabbing Wynn with the dagger instead. Now that should have been kept in the shooting script, and it's not.
Yes.
Tommy, who is approaching on the catwalk overlooking the chamber, opens fire on the cultists, and Wynn cuts down the catwalk supports, though, and Tommy falls, losing the gun and the explosive. So this is just straight up turning into an action movie. And Wynn unleashes Michael from his cell, and Tommy grabs Kara and Danny. Loomis fights Wynn hand-to-hand, but gets slashed with the dagger as Wynn escapes up a staircase. And Jamie hands her baby over to Kara and gets stabbed by Michael, who pursues the escaping heroes as they run off down the tunnel. And then the wounded Jamie shows Loomis that she has picked up the detonator and lets him escape before setting off the explosives, destroying the ritual chamber. So Jamie gets like a badass moment.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty.
Tommy...
It's such a shame that this was not filmed.
Yeah. Tommy and the rest, they make it into the elevator in time before the explosions overtake them, riding it up, and they get up to a hallway, and they're met by a series of cages. And behind them, the elevator is going back down, so Michael is getting his Queen Alien moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the key card stops working at the third gate as Wynn has jammed the system from his office. And Michael takes the elevator up and emerges behind them, the sprinklers putting out the flames on him. He mercilessly bashes Tommy against the bars, but while this is happening, Wynn goes to take off in his helicopter, but the series of explosions reaches the gas of the helicopter and blows him up, and Michael, because they have that weird sympathetic relationship like that, where they're like linked, Michael feels the pain, and he's rocked by it, and he's thrashing around. And Loomis then removes Wynn's gun from his desk, shooting the security console and allowing Tommy and the rest of them to escape down the tunnel as Michael thrashes around. They emerge outside the building, making a run for it before Michael emerges from a hatch right next to them. They're backed up against an electric fence, but Loomis then, I love this moment. This is such a cool Loomis moment. He's behind the wheel of the white van, smashes Michael into the fence, the mask melting onto his face, and Loomis passes out. And Tommy leads the group through the hole, because fuck Loomis, I guess, and they drive off in his car. And Loomis then awakes in the van and screams in horror when he sees that Michael is already gone. And Tommy and the group, they arrive at the bus station, and while Kara takes the two kids into the ladies' room with her, Tommy tries to make a call. He then hears the radio call that Jamie made to the Sims show playing over the PA system, and then walks to the ladies' room where he finds Kara dead, her throat slit, the thorn symbol on the wall in blood, and the children gone. He lets out a scream, and we get a series of shots of different locations of the script, all set to Michael's heavy breathing, and it ends. That's a great ending.
That is actually a great ending. I love the tie-in to the first one, too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading the quote that apparently some executive at the Dimension read it and couldn't sleep that night, and then actually reading the script, it's like, oh...
It makes sense to you now at that point?
Yeah, because that ending actually is really good.
This movie, the script is choppy, but it sounds like really well done for the most part. There's a lot of interesting ideas. I mean,
there's a lot of interesting ideas in the three scripts that we have, even if the revised draft is still the weakest. But each have their own individual pieces of brilliance, and for a first-time screenwriter as well. And there's a perfect script within all three of these drafts.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate that's like we never really got the best Halloween 6 that we could have, because it's like, I feel like, I mean, just listening to what the script was, before they got to the shooting script, the theatrical cut, the producer's cut, what have you. I feel like there could have been a great Halloween 6 in there. It just, we never got it.
Yeah, you just need to, I mean, the main problem with this first draft is that it just needs to be condensed a little in the middle, which the revisions fix.
Right.
Because,
yeah.
Now, I should talk about the undated revision now, right?
Yeah, just talk about the key differences. Same with the shooting script.
It's mainly the same as this. Like I mentioned, like how it condenses like all the stuff around the carnival down into, it condenses it down a lot, and then like the cabin stuff, instead of that, it's like they're all together in the boarding house, and they all get taken to Smith's Grove by the cult. And it's like, oh, they wake up Tommy like wakes up tied to like the rack in the birthing room, and he like cuts his rope on the metal, and that's how he gets out. And then, Kara's the one who's going to be sacrificed by Danny, and then the baby's there. And, Jamie doesn't live to the third act in that version. Basically what happens is, instead of like the big explosion, they knock over some candles and set it on fire.
Yeah, and she also gets her throat slit by Dr. Wynn instead of getting shot, like in the producer's cut.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he slits Jamie's throat. And what happens is that in that version, that Wynn grabs Danny, runs up off the staircase, he jams the security cages, then takes off in the helicopter and gets away with the kid. And the security cages thing happens the same way, but it doesn't make as much sense because Michael is still thrashing around in pain, even though the explosion doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And like Loomis, like he shoots the thing to let them escape, and then you never see him again. And it's not even clarified what happened. And then they get into the van and drive away, and then like, ooh, the face of the shape is coming out of the shadows in the back of the van, and it just ends.
Yeah, and it's also a surprisingly short draft. It got down to 97 pages.
Yeah, that's true. This one is 113.
Holy God.
And then the shooting script, which we don't have an authentic copy of, but we have a pretty well-formatted type-up of. Someone actually spent their time to get it in a proper screenplay format. It comes to 119 pages. So somehow... and this always made me wonder, wait, is the revised draft somehow like a revision of the shooting script? But no, that's not the case, because at that point you would have A pages and B pages for scenes that get extended.
Right.
And then it would also say scene omitted for scenes that get cut. So that can't be the case. So somehow, I assume what happened is that Daniel Ferrands was given a lot of notes to truncate the script. He did. A new notes process was done, and they're like, okay, reinsert some of the elements from your first draft back into the shooting script, or whatever revised script came after that script.
Now, the shooting script, the big differences is...
one more difference. How did Barry Sims die in the revised draft?
If I remember, in Barry Sims, I think he's just standing under the tree and Michael gets him.
Yeah, pretty undramatic.
And in the, now to go into the shooting script, that gets even closer to the movie in terms of dialogue and stuff. Like, it still has, it has the helicopter, but it's only in, the one scene when they arrive at the field, so there's still the giant crop circle. And it even, individual dialogue, all the weird Barry Sims lines, crotchless panties and barks like a dog, that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And, the whole idea of, him wanting to, broadcast from the Myers house, and then he's looking for his van, and he's I don't know if this scene was actually shot or not, where he's talking shit to Michael almost like Busta Rhymes.
That never got filmed.
Yeah, he's talking shit to Michael like Busta Rhymes does in Resurrection, and then Michael just kills him.
Yeah, they get Tarantino reference in, they also get a Star Trek reference in.
Yeah.
And he slices his throat with the cell phone.
Yeah, that was... He shoves it in. No, he doesn't slice his throat. He
shoves it down his throat.
Yeah, he breaks the end off it and shoves it through his mouth and out the back of his head.
Get it? Because he's a talking head.
But no, the Halloween tree is still in that. The Halloween tree is still in that version. The condensing down to what ends up happening at the boarding house is the same, and the way they wake up at at the hospital is the same, and those scenes in like Smith's Grove are pretty much the same as the revision. But the way the ending goes is that, okay, so Danny doesn't stab Wynn, and so what happens is that instead of the helicopter stuff, they're getting chased through the security cages by Michael, and Wynn shows up, and what happens basically is that Loomis traps himself in the security cage with the two of them and allows them to escape, and then Michael like looms up over him and then cuts away and then cuts back, and he wakes up, and it's like the ending of the producer's cut, only without the magic rocks.
Oh. I should also note with the revised draft, that was actually the first draft that I read, and I actually remember being somewhat disappointed because I kept hearing about how the first draft of Halloween 6 was so amazing. And then I read the shooting script, I'm like, did they have it backwards? Because the shooting script seems better. But then, lo and behold, we got our hands on that first draft.
But I mean, I don't know why they didn't do the security cages. I'm like, could they not go like, hey, Dimension, could you make us like some prop bars?
No, we don't have the money for that.
Well, they kept getting their budget slashed at that point.
Yeah, that's true. But that's a shame because that ending is just so much better than the magic runes.
Yeah.
And then it's a little bit different because the ending is the same as the first draft, only instead of both kids being gone, Danny is standing over his mother's corpse and he's got the blackest eyes. And the implication being that he killed his mother, and then it does the same like shot of all the locations, and then there's an after credit scene of Michael wearing the Man in Black clothes standing in front of the Myers house.
Oh, so now Michael's the Man in Black.
Because that's in the producer's cut, kind of, but it's kind of hard to tell because of the way it's shot.
That's like shot in a long corridor.
Where Michael is wearing, because he switched clothes with the Man in Black.
Yes, he did.
Which is a nice shot at the end of the producer's cut, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like there's a little added bit with Loomis and the thorn mark on his wrist where he goes into Wynn's office to the sink that's at the wet bar and tries to like wipe it off. Like that was actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So I mean, if you took like the main revisions that kind of made it into the shooting script and like added in some of the things back from the other drafts, like actually have Danny stab Wynn so he has a reason to want to switch places with Loomis right then and there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then have Jamie do something in the third act.
It would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still love and respect the producer's cut and even what we got out of that.
I'm just thankful we actually got an official release of that.
That too, and in really good quality as well.
Yeah.
And I have nothing but respect for what Daniel Ferrands wanted to do with this. And as a fan, it's amazing to hear his story about how he got involved in the project, how it was his first, paying job really, or his first official job in Hollywood.
Right.
And even though it set him up for disappointment, how he kind of continued from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot of great stuff in Halloween 6, even like what we got in the producer's cut. So it's still pretty, where am I trying to go with this? I'm running on such low energy.
Low energy, Alex.
Yeah, it's not great. Fuck it. I don't know where I'm going with this.
About what we got out of Halloween 6.
Yeah. Like, for what we got, I'm glad with it. I'm happy with it. I like the producer's cut for what it is. It had its flaws, sure, but it's still one of the better Halloween movies in my opinion. But
yeah,
honestly speaking, like, I feel like if they just had a little bit more time, kind of focused in and like worked with these drafts and kind of solidified their ideas, felt like we would have had an incredible movie.
To quote one of the guys who worked on the special effects, he said, I felt like at the end of the day, we made a good movie, but looking at the original script, we could have had a great movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I know John Carl Buechler also spoke highly of the script. He did when I actually met him, and it's a shame he's no longer with us.
Right.
But yeah, he spoke highly of the script with me in person even. And it's a shame that this storyline couldn't continue because I prefer it over the Blumhouse storyline. I prefer it over the H2O storyline because of Resurrection.
Right.
And I liked the direction it could have gone in.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I know a lot of people hate like Supernatural Michael, but it's like it's still. I mean, Michael's always been somewhat supernatural, you know.
It was a logical conclusion of a lot of random decisions.
Exactly. Yeah, like it was making do with what they got, and honestly, it makes it kind of tied it up in a nice little bow. Honestly, I mean, yeah, there is that cliffhanger ending, but you know, that's every Halloween movie.
And it's also, I mean, it's taking, you know, the mess to Halloween 5 left behind and doing a fairly admirable job of tying it all together.
Yeah, and it would even improve, you know, had everything come into sync, it would have even improved Halloween 5, I think, in some people's eyes. Just because, hey, even though this entry isn't that strong, and it's just introducing a lot of polyglot stuff, at least the next movie solves its issues.
Yeah.
Too bad we never got that movie, but hey, we got close enough with the producer's cut, and for that, I'm happy.
Yeah, it's still one of my favorites in the series, and it was always interesting to go back thinking about in 2007 when I found out about this because of the internet that there was this alternate cut that you could watch on YouTube, and then every now and then it would get struck down because of a copyright, and just
now we have a Blu-ray official copy.
Yeah, and that patient waiting that we did as Halloween fans, and that constant attention that we gave it.
Sucking Snyder fans.
Yeah, and I do have to say I disagree with James Rolfe on this movie.
Oh wait, does James Rolfe not like this movie?
Yeah, he does not. Yeah, especially the producer's cut.
Oh, really? See, I didn't watch his review of it, so
he also did another video on like how Halloween 6 could have been fixed. But honestly, I feel like what we said here about the scripting phase, how it could have been perfect.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm about ready to pass out, and I do got to work at 3.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I want to thank you, Bruce, for having us on again as always.
No problem.
And for working through this weird ass schedule that is 2020.
Yeah. On top of the weirdness that is these scripts.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I kept like pushing it back and shit. I did not have the time to read all of them, and I was just like, I got to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
This is me. I read through these super, super quickly because I thought I needed to rush it.
Yeah. But, where can they find you, Alex?
You can find me online. I have my own YouTube channel. You can find me at Alex Wyke, or you can go to my new one I just uploaded. It's White Key Productions, so it's like white key of a piano. White Key Productions. That's how you spell it. I have one video up there, but we're going to be posting more stuff. And you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. I don't really use my Twitter, but that's where you can find me.
Yep, and just sort of a quick personal announcement on my front here. I mentioned earlier that I was in between names. It's because I'm going through gender transition at the moment. And so who knows what I'll be going I know what I'll be going by eventually, but who knows how soon that will be, that you'll be hearing about it on this show. So I might be using my new name when that occurs. But we do want to come back on here, possibly for a superhero script with Alex.
Oh, which one?
We've talked about it before, but we can talk about that in DMs.
Oh, yeah.
And also, I think, Alex, you would be interested in doing National Treasure 3.
That one that's piqued my interest. I mean, honestly, I don't know really anything about the National Treasure, like behind-the-scenes footage, but I love those National Treasure movies, so that piqued my interest.
Well, anyway, happy Halloween, folks, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
2020. Happy Halloween.
Bye.
Bye.